Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv. Wolok, my partner in crime, as always, Vasili Gianarakos. How you doing, my friend?
Surviving Yariv after some flooding happened in
Yeah,
Toronto yesterday. So doing good and happy that nothing flooded on my end, but a
yeah.
lot of people having some troubles over here with that. So, thoughts and prayers out to them. And also just really we're kind of at the dead period, right? In terms of news. Like there
Yeah.
is some, you know, news trickling in terms of the Flyers, nothing really concrete. So it's more just like hypothetical type of topics for us to kind of dive into, which is actually some of the best conversations. So it's going to be a good episode. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. We're surviving the heat wave we got going on here. It looks like it's finally starting to go down a little bit. Potentially starting tomorrow. We are getting a little bit of rain now, so it's cooling down. But it's been crazy in America. You know, if you're listening, you are not blind to the fact our freaking potential future presidents' heads are getting blown off. Now, yeah, so we had a crazy weekend here in America. Just remind everybody to stay safe and be nice to one another. That's all I'll say about that. Yeah, it's been a weird. It's weird. Like I always look for hockey to be like that distraction away from reality, and when it gets slow in Flyers world, it kind of sucks. Like not life sucks, but like I love it. I love opening on Twitter or HF boards or whatever and just seeing news and just giving us topics. But we actually have a pretty good show today. Um, and then for those who are listening, he's doing his tour right now, which is ironic because I hit him up and I guess everybody else had the exact same thought. But we will be having Jim Jackson on here next week. Um, and I think he's on High and Wide tonight as we
Yeah, he
record
is.
this. And he did Locked On Flyers with Russ Cohen and Rachel Donner.
Oh, I didn't know that. So
Um,
he's really making the
yeah,
rounds. But he does that every summer. And I
right.
mean, we're pretty happy to have him on. He's obviously voice of the
Yeah.
Flyers and one of my favorite guests personally. Always a
Well,
great conversation.
last time we had him on, I think you had something come up with work, right? What didn't something happen where you
I
couldn't
think
make
I
it
was on
on?
vacation actually.
Something happened,
Yeah.
yeah, where you couldn't make that episode. So that was a bummer. We had a great episode with him, but I'm sure we're gonna have another great one with him. So yeah, look forward to that one. We have a good one for you today. Yeah, just to give you guys a quick preview before I go to my usual spiel, we'll be talking about Johnson, Eric Johnson. We'll talk about Wade Allison, Kosov, Zavragin, the six players, or actually seven players. You have to correct it prior to this, that are attending the summer showcase. We're gonna go through a whole draft um, perspective. Let's put it that way. Segment over the last 14 years. We're going to break down why I don't pay attention to draft rankings anymore, how the years of research I've done prove to me that I don't care about rankings anymore. Also, we're going to talk about the Flyers' age range, which also an interesting story. The Flyers' success with fighting this past year. Talk a little bit about TK. Then we'll end a little bit with the Phantoms. So pretty chock full episode. We'll have plenty to talk about at least. Before we get started, just want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe. Our subscriptions have definitely gone up. If you are listening right now, if you have been listening multiple times, hopefully you enjoy what we do, and please give us a like. You can downvote us too, but I would prefer not. And give us a subscription. That is a great way, the best way to support this podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube, and also hit the notification bell for notifications on when these episodes release on YouTube. Follow us on iTunes and Spotify to get the audio version, and give us a ratings there as well. We did get some ratings. We haven't gotten any in a while. So if you're listening to audio version and you haven't rated, give us a rating so far. That would be excellent. That also is very helpful with getting recommendations, just moving us up the charts. So thank you all so much for the support you've shown us so far. It's been amazing, and we continue to grow, and we will continue with content. And Vasily likes to remind everybody, and I think I should remind everybody, we do this all summer long. We will have our weekly schedule unless something, is unavoidable that we can't do it. We'll try to supplement something, but usually we go all season, all year, like the season is kind of going. Also, shout out to our sponsor, Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Make sure to go get yourself a cheesesteaks from Jim Steaks at 4th and South. They are reopened as of May 1st. They have great cheesesteaks. Make sure to go get a cheesesteak from Jim's. Also, shout out to Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Go to them for all your insurance adjustment needs. They will check your insurance claims and make sure that they are accurate. They're your only weapon against the insurance companies, 215-752-0560. Also, want to give a brief shout out to our new partners. For those who are just listening right now, I'm referring to Sports Spider. If you are tired of searching for multiple websites for sporting news, sportspider.com has you covered. They collect the latest articles, videos, and podcasts from around the web and organize them by your favorite team. If you want to stay updated as possible on your Philadelphia Flyers and the NHL in general, hit the link in the description to check out Sports Spider. Again, they are our official partner. They have us as kind of a priority on their site. They're trying to be like a Bleacher Report before Bleacher Report sucked. Where they aggregate everybody from local coverage. They have a podcast section, all the content's pulled on. It's actually pretty cool. You should
Yeah,
definitely
their
check out their
site is
site.
awesome.
Yeah, it's
Definitely.
pretty cool. Go check out Sports Spider. Again, the link to them is in the description, but it is sportspider.com. Okay, let's get into it, Vasili. So the first piece of news we have is on Eric Johnson. This is a little late now because we do a weekly podcast, so this obviously happened several days ago. But Eric Johnson was in an interview, and people were kind of harping on the veteran thing. I think people kind of look at it as a trope. I don't look at it as a trope. I think it's incredibly important to have these kind of leadership personalities, guys who can create a really cohesive locker room, guys who understand the little details of interpersonal communication, understand what new guys are going through, understand how to lead by example. And that could be beyond just on the ice. That could be just the way that they approach players in the locker room, the way they introduce new players in. And Eric Johnson gave us a little bit of insight that he has been communicating with Matvey Michkov. And he's been doing that via, I believe, Instagram, using the translation tool. And, he was kind of talking about they do share an agency and an agent. So it makes it, a little bit easier to get a
Yeah,
hold of him.
CAA.
Yeah, CAA. And, he just really talked about the empathy he had for him, understanding he's coming to a new country, a new team. There's a language barrier. And he kind of went ahead and, started communicating with the kid, in advance of him coming here, allowing him to feel welcome before he even made it to the United States. I think it's those little details that people will never, for the most part, will never hear about or notice. But we got a little bit of insight on this one, and why veteran guys are so important, why the Flyers love Scott Lawton, who obviously would be this type of character as well. Somebody to kind of pull Michkov into the group early. I think there's other guys. I think Joel Farabee is one of those guys. I don't think many people understand that about Farabee either. That kind of understand the importance of feeling like they're part of the group. And we heard Jamie Drysdale talk about it. Obviously he knew Cam York is a friend of his, but he was pulled into the group and told to go on vacation with everybody. And he talked about how that helped him. Like all this stuff is huge. If you work in the real world and you understand like these off sites that companies have and how it brings groups together, it's hard to work all the time, be a work mentality. So understanding how to balance that as an athlete and understanding how to help a new kid, a young 19-year-old get adapted to a new area. I think that was huge. And I already think Eric Johnson has amazing leadership skills from the little bit that I've seen of him. But I think, this is a testament to a guy who really gets it and knows what his role is with this team.
Yeah, I agree, Yariv. I think really it just shows the value of signing a guy like Johnson essentially already. He
Yeah.
was a prior captain, so it's no surprise to me that he's
And
acting in
first
this
overall
manner.
pick. So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so he has the insight into being a high pick, the pressures that come with that, how that can really weigh on the shoulders of a young player trying to make their way in the NHL. So that's why I think it is really important to have a guy like him in the locker room, right? Because it's not only Michkov that he can help, and he is helping, but I'm sure it's going to be the majority of the locker room just with all the experiences that he's been through, the adversity that he's had to face. I do have some quotes from Johnson
Yeah.
in his media
Great.
availability, so I'm just going to read that out for anybody who hasn't had a chance to check it out. Johnson essentially stated, "I've been doing my best to communicate with Michkov via Instagram. With the translation tool, it's been pretty easy to do that. Just trying to get him comfortable. Any questions he has, I'm answering it for him." Johnson later stated, even as an American guy breaking into the league as a 19-year-old like I did back in 2007, I was super nervous being around the old guys. Just being in a new city, a new country, a new language, new food, new everything, new rules, new ice sheet, all that. It's super challenging. And I can't imagine how difficult it would be for a young kid like Matvey coming over from Russia. Just a new experience for him. And then the last quote that Johnson gave is, "I'm here for him anyway he needs, or I'm here for him in any way he needs, in helping acclimate to Philly and to the NHL." Johnson said, "Whether he needs a ride or needs recommendations for where to eat on the road, has questions about how practice is run, how things are going on with meetings, the schedule, all of that. He knows that I'm here for him to answer any questions, and I'm excited to work with him. He's a high-end package, tons of skill, and it looks like Philly has a great one on their hands for a long time." Just based off those quotes, you can see how helpful Johnson's already being to Michkov, and just the fact that, hey, like if you have any questions, you have any thing you want to know about the area, like I'm going to be here as a shoulder to lean on. And that's essentially what you want from your older guys. And it's essentially why the Flyers, you know, gave Johnson a contract, because they know he's not going to be an every night player, but what he can bring off the ice is an invaluable asset. Whereas, like, sure, if you have a team full of young guys and you have no veterans, that might be great, might be a more skilled team, but who's going to be around to help integrate some of these younger players to the NHL and to what it's like to be a pro at the NHL level? There might not be anybody around. So I definitely understand, the qualms from the fans. Well, you want to get younger, you're blocking certain people by signing a guy like Johnson. But I just think that what he brings off the ice, his prior captaincy, his experiences, what you see in those quotes that he mentioned, that's just an invaluable thing. And it just shows that it's not all about skill and talent. Like, there needs to be relationship building. That's a huge part of, any successful team. Just like any workplace, right? If you don't have the relationships, sometimes it can be tough beyond that. So I think with Johnson, he's already helping to kind of foster that positive relationship with Michkov, even
Yeah.
before he's even in America here.
Yeah, no, I think that's really well stated, and it is crucial. And this is a young team. We're going to talk more about that a little bit later, but it's I think people have, again, I hate to be insulting, but there's just so many people that at least I see on Twitter, and I don't think our audience primarily is like that. They kind of have this like fantasy hockey mentality about the Flyers more than the reality of what, running a team, running people, managing people.
You can't just have skill, first of all.
Right. Like, yeah, skill's a big part of winning a championship, but when you're in and I've talked about this over and over again, I think a lot of people scream for wanting a rebuild, and then when the process is actually happening in front of their face, they scream that it's happening in front of their face.
It's
Like, they
not going to
don't.
be instant, right,
Right.
Yariv?
Yeah. Like, and we're going to talk about the draft and all that stuff and the youth of this team. We're going to dig deeper into that. But this is one of those key fundamental attitudes that you need behind the scenes, which, again, Johnson said himself. He's like, I sincerely mean this. He's like, this is one of the best locker rooms I've ever been in. And I think if you want to give Danny and Jones, and you can, and Tortorella as well, you want to give them credit. And I don't know why Tortorella doesn't seem to get credit for this, but creating an environment that allows these players to cultivate a culture within that room that has these guys kind of loving one another. I think that that's huge. And a guy like Michkov coming over here without any experience in North America for the most part, right? Outside of tournaments, here and there, you know, he's going to be far from home. And I believe he's not, it's not going to be like the Kosov situation. We're going to talk about that after. But he needs that little bit extra. We have a lot invested in him, so he needs to walk into a really good room. It's a reason why you invest like guys like Lawton and Johnson and Delorier and Hathaway and TK and Couturier. It's why those guys need to be part of the process as well, not just, hey, let's throw a bunch of 21-year-olds on a team and they'll develop. That's not real. That's why we talk about how tanking is actually like it's almost like a myth to some degree that it's that effective, because majority of teams that tank don't make it out. Only a select few teams who manage to find a Connor Bedard, a Connor McDavid, an Austin Matthews, and then proceed to actually hit those home runs at the top of the draft, which does not happen every time, and we're going to go through that later. They're the ones who make it out, but a lot of the teams that don't hit home runs when they draft low and can't just like use skill to attract free agents. And it doesn't really matter because we see what Chicago did, right? They didn't go one last year when they drafted Bedard. They went outside Taylor Hall. They went out to go find veterans. And this year, when they were a little bit better, they went out and found more veterans. And now they are trying to cultivate a culture because that is immensely important to building an organization, a winning organization. And I think Johnson adds that. And he's also not that bad, dude. Like we can both agree he was not horrible
No,
on the
he
Flyers.
has a good stick. Really, the only criticism at his age is probably the foot speed, but I
Yeah.
don't think he's going to be an every night guy nonetheless. Like
Yeah.
if he's somebody you want to put it on the bottom pair, how about with the PK in a pinch? I think like he's the perfect guy, especially coupled with the leadership
Yeah.
experience.
And he might not have the speed, but he's got the size.
Yeah,
And he's got
exactly.
the
The
sense, he's got the
physicality.
hockey sense and all that. So he can find a way to kind of compensate it, to play that number
Well, if he
six
plays with the
role.
puck mover, right? It's almost like that style complements a puck moving defenseman. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So while we're talking about Michkov, I do want to dig into this a little bit too, because me and you were texting over the weekend. I had some time while I was down the shore, and I just sat on my laptop and I just watched just video after video after video after video after video on Michkov. And I already watched a bunch online, so I went digging deep and I tried to find old footage and I sent you, a bunch of links. And I really was looking, I'm like, okay, we're always watching Michkov, playing against older players. His whole career, he's been playing against guys at least 2 years older than him. Now he's in the
yep.
KHL and that, he's been in the VHL obviously for a short stint too, the MHL. He's always the youngest guy, right? Like this guy was playing in the MHL when he was like 15 years old. He was playing in the KHL when he was 16. Like this is a guy who's always played against older guys, never really playing against guys his age. So we went back to about 4 or 5 years ago, try to find footage of him playing against guys closer to his age in the lower levels, before you kind of get, because a lot of those guys get weeded out over time. So a lot of the people he's playing at that age, they're not touching the KHL even, right? So, but he is playing against guys in his age group. And a lot of times when we watch like Bedard, right? You watch those Bedard highlights from his draft year. For the most part, he's playing guys in his age group. It's a little bit different in college. It's a little bit different for some of the European players, obviously in general. But this guy didn't even come up with his age group to play against men. He showed up early. So I wanted to see footage of him playing against guys his age. And, to put it in perspective to you guys, a lot of the footage that we watched was like Russia under 16 league.
Yeah, he
He
was like 15 years old at that point or something.
Right. He had 70 goals and 39 assists for 109 points in 26 games playing
Yeah,
against kids his age.
it's like
Uh,
Gretzky, Bedard, McDavid type
right.
levels, actually.
So, and the reason I wanted to watch this is because he is the type of player where like he's not as risky as you assume he will be for a Russian hockey player, but when he's playing against guys that he knows he's considerably better, his game changes. So and I expect that to be in the NHL a little bit too, where I expect him to kind of not try as risky of a plays in the very beginning when he shows up to the NHL, but when you see him open up, and I know you were watching those highlights that I was sending you. He made these kids look like pylons. And, we can like let's say, oh, it doesn't matter, but like we're watching the kid grow. And I was trying to find stuff, like I was saying, that is relevant to his age group, like guys that are about his age. And I believe he's still younger than them in that. Because he was dominating other tournaments, like even the Russian tournaments. He was still the youngest player on his team, and he was the best player on his team. So for all that Demidov talk, like I think really highly of Demidov, but he was not doing that at the same age. I think the kid is still going to be elite, but I'm just looking at the fact that Michkov is an anomaly. And when I was watching that footage, and you tell me if you agree, the way he was just cutting through players, like he is vastly more dynamic when he has space. Like he is much more of a, like the footage that everybody looks of Demidov this past year, which again, he played at an older age than what Michkov was playing. He did not play in the MHL at the same age that Demidov did. He was already in the KHL at that point. You watch those Demidov highlights and he's like dangling and doing all these amazing plays and passes. When you watch Michkov playing against guys his age, in the appropriate level. I mean, these guys didn't stand a chance against him. He would just cut through everybody, just deking, cutting through like three, four players, top shelf, deke, top shelf, breakaway. It's just, and not only that, he looked considerably faster when he's not playing against men as like a 17-year-old. It's like this speed element he needs to build on as he gains strength, right? As he becomes a man, he will get faster. And you realize, like, amongst his age group, he's actually a burner to some degree. I'm not saying he's Connor McDavid speed, but he's the guy who's ahead of the pack pretty much every single time. When it's guys that are physically where he is in the maturity level. And again, he's not like a freak from a physical standpoint, right? He's pretty average. He's like probably going to end up being like 5'11", 195, when he's fully mature. But I think that there's a lot more speed and dynamic play within there. We always look at the highlights that are all shooting, but when you watch like the younger stuff, he is just a deke machine. What were your thoughts, Vasili?
Yeah, so the videos of Michkov are really interesting. I think the main thing that stood out to me is just his elusiveness in
Yeah,
general. Amongst his own age group, I think he realized or obviously noticed that, hey, I'm better than a lot of these other players that are in the same age range as me. There's a lot more open space on the ice for me to try certain things that maybe at higher levels might not work against, more physical, much physically mature opponents. Whereas you can get away with trying to dangle through four or five guys when you're, playing other players that are your same age might not have, edge up on you in terms of the physicality. We're in the KHL if he's going to try that. You could get hit a lot easier, or you could have the gaps close a lot easier. Not to say that I don't think he has the skill and ability to do that at the KHL level, even at the NHL level at some point. I just think it's more of a confidence thing, understanding, hey, I can do this, and also just getting used to the league, right? Because you saw some of the highlight reel goals you're scoring in the KHL. And they were phenomenal. So it just takes some time for a younger player to adjust to, making that jump to a new league. But amongst his own players, like you said, like the speed really, or not players, amongst his own age group, the speed really stands out to me. And the thing is, like, he was never touted to be, oh, he's this burner in his draft class, but I really think that's kind of inaccurate. I think
right.
maybe that the prospect analysts are selling him short a bit there, just because you have guys like a Bedard in that same draft class. And some other really highly touted prospects who, like, the skating was really the cornerstone of their games, whereas Michkov was all about like the hands and the thinking. That's kind of what was highlighted in his prospect profiles. But I really think the skating is underrated in the sense that there's a lot of untapped acceleration
Right.
there, and you have to think too. Once you get stronger, in just naturally getting older, naturally physically maturing, because he's really only 19 years old, that acceleration, that burst of speed, that agility as you get stronger is all going to increase. So you just have to think, how fast could he really get as all that stuff kind of improves. And really the main thing for me, and I mean, I noticed it a ton in his KHL play too, and it's translated over. It's just his willingness to bring the puck to the net, like almost on essentially every play, whether he's dangling in, whether he's bringing the puck behind the net and then going from behind the net to the net. He's always looking, usually when he has the puck on his stick, if there's not somebody that's like wide open for a backdoor feed or something, he's usually trying to get to the slot and below and either take a shot or actually carry the puck, through bodies and take it to the net and create some sort of rebound, some sort of greasy goal. Like, I can't tell you how many games I watched him in the KHL this season where he did the same thing with Sochi. It was just taking the puck behind the net, trying a stuff play. There's a rebound. He's able to like stuff it in by the goalie. He's not afraid to bring the puck to the net. And I think there's a misconception sometimes with like Russian players that, oh, they're perimeter players. They don't want to get into the dirty areas.
He
Like
is
with
not.
Michkov, that's the complete opposite of it. Like he
Yeah.
wants to go to the net. He's typically going to the net most of the time. And if you watch back some of these, videos of him in these lower leagues as a 15-year-old, pretty much all he's doing, if he's not dangling through four or five guys and scoring a highlight reel goal, he's then, in the zone, drawing players into him, like skating right by them and then bringing the puck to the net for a chance or for a goal. So
Yeah.
I think for the NHL, think about how a lot of goal scoring is created. It's usually by driving the net, bringing the puck to the net. Obviously, you have your goals that you're going to score off the rush, but when you're in the actual zone, bringing the puck to the net, creating rebounds, creating havoc in front of the net. That's how you score goals typically at the NHL level. And that's typically how power plays are also successful at the NHL level, getting the puck to the net, creating havoc. So I think for all those things, like if you look at Michkov's game, there's obviously going to be adjustments that he's going to have to make when he comes to the NHL, but I think there's a lot of elements already that suit the NHL game phenomenally, especially his habits of bringing the puck to the net. So I think he's going to have, a transition with those attributes that's pretty seamless. Like there's going to be some certain things he's going to need to learn, maybe the speed and the pace, for example, just to get accustomed to that. But like some of the finer details, that certain Russian players might not always have in their game that kind of has to be built up over years, like getting those tougher areas, things like that. Like that's already a big staple of his game at only
Yeah.
19. So
Yeah, dude, really well. That's a great point, actually. And I really think that his game is actually better suited for the NHL than it is the
that's
KHL.
my thoughts because I just
Yeah.
think that the KHL is so east-west, and the way he plays, he's always kind of north-south. He's not really looking across the ice. It's more head-on, bring the puck to the net, and really release pucks fast when he does have like shooting opportunities.
Yeah,
So
his offensive game is 100% pro ready. Again, his defensive game will need work, but and I was watching footage of him in the VHL too, the AHL comparable for the KHL, where he's essentially 16 years old playing against these men, and it was still domination. Like every shift, there were so many highlights, and like I was watching shift by shifts, and so he's not like scoring or having an assist on every single play. Um, but there were so many opportunities that he set up for his teammates that they just weren't able to finish or they missed the net.
yeah, exactly.
Like the amount of more points this guy can put up playing with more competent players in those type of leagues, it's the sky. Like I get why the projection is this guy could be top three in points like every year because you look at the way he is. He's not just a pure sniper. He
Yeah.
does. He is that guy. If he needs to be, he will be that
His
guy.
creativity, like I said, like when I
Right.
was watching those videos of him when he was younger, like I don't want to bring up the Datsu comparisons because like
It's
he's one of the best players ever, but he really reminds me of Pavel Datsuk in the way he handles the puck, kind of surveys, and just like Datsuk was, right? A guy who's willing to get to the net at all
yeah.
times. So
It's interesting because like I don't remember Pavel Datsuk's draft year. Nobody does because
he
he
was
was
like
drafted.
seventh
He was like
or seventh
sixth round. I
round
think
or
sixth. I think he
something.
was sixth round. I think it was. I don't
Either
remember. It was
one, late
end of
round
the
pick.
draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was not a high draft pick. I don't know if he was like a lights out defensive player, and I don't know if Michkov's ever going to be like a Sean Couturier type of defensive player or something like that. But we looked at what TK did to his defensive game over time and how he learned to play a much better defensive game. I with Michkov's work ethic and his understanding of the game, because if he has the hockey IQ of somebody like Sean Couturier with his gifts, he can apply that methodology to a defensive play as well. He's never going to be, I don't think he's ever going to be, one, he's a winger, he's not a centerman, right? So he's not going to be like the best defensive player on a team. But could he become a plus defensive player? I think that potential is there too. I don't think it's going to be there year one in the NHL, as it's not the case for most players. But nobody expected Tyson Forrester to be a plus defensive player. And look how he developed because of his work ethic and his work around the boards and finding a way to work for him. So I don't know exactly. Again, I like hesitate so much to talk him up so much because I know that if there's like any bit of struggle, people are gonna freak out. But I really don't expect that. I do expect this guy to take the skills that he has, walk in on this top six, and contribute day one. And I still see, I like played around with ChatGPT and asked them what they thought, what ChatGPT thought Michkov would put up in his first season,
What'd
just
they
for
say?
fun. It said typically 40 to 60 points of a player of Michkov's caliber.
It's
And
kind
I
of what we
think,
projected, right?
right,
So
I do see, and again, I don't normally say this about rookies. Normally, I'll say about a 40-point range for a really good rookie. I see Michkov, if he comes in and transitions the way we hope he will, 60 to 70 points is absolutely achievable. I mean, I
yeah,
look at the
that's my
type,
thoughts. I think he'll
yeah.
be right in the Calder race, to be honest. So
I expect him to be. Look, I think Celebrini is a hell of a prospect. I think he gets the edge because he's a centerman and he played in college hockey and all that. I think is completely relevant. I'm not putting him down at all. But with the sheer offensive ability that Michkov has, I don't see why he would not be leading the race points the entire season if things go the way we hope they go.
yeah, and
Could
you have
that
to look at the
could
talent
not
level.
happen? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, Reeve. I was just gonna say you have to look at the talent level of the Flyers compared to San Jose. Like the Flyers have a more opponent
Right.
offensive team than the Sharks. Like so you look at that and you have to say, hey, like he's like realistically, the Flyers power play is shit. Like it was, last in the league for 3 seasons
Shit.
straight. So the chances are like they're gonna let this kid run with the power play and say, hey, like our power play has been garbage. You're known to be a very good power play player.
There's no
I
way
would
they're
not
not
be
going to try him.
yeah, exactly. Like I would not be surprised. Like obviously the first 10, 15 games, like it might not run completely through him, but I would expect by the end of the season, probably midway even through the season, probably even earlier, like December, mid-November is my guess. I expect the power play to be running through Michkov as the
I,
quarterback. So
yeah, no, I could see it.
him and Drysdale essentially.
I expect him to be on the number one power play unit day one. I know that maybe that won't happen, but that's where my head is at. That might not be the case. He might be on power play two to start just because he's a rookie. But the offensive gifts are enormous.
Yeah.
So, and when
And
your
your
power
power
play is
play is
that bad,
garbage. So
yeah, it's like you can't make the argument that you have something better. You know what
you
I mean?
clearly do not. So,
Yeah, like I think if he was here last year, he would have been playing on the top power play unit, to be honest
oh,
with
for sure. Yeah.
you. Yeah. Okay. Let's move into our next topic. This one will be quick. I just wanted to mention that Wade Allison, former recent Flyer, he was obviously did not work out here, a former second round pick, has officially signed in the KHL with Baris Astana, of the KHL. So he's going overseas, probably trying to revitalize his career. I imagine he's actually going to do pretty well there. Especially the type of game he has. He's got a big shot and a big body. I think he could do well in the KHL. But it's kind of sad to see him go. He had such promise here as a middle six forward, as the very least a bottom six forward in the NHL, just given his skill set. But he goes off to the KHL, and I wish him the best. And I hope it's 1 year and he comes back and finds an NHL spot. To be honest.
Yeah. I think if he produces well, I could definitely see an NHL team being interested. I'm really surprised that he didn't get some sort of offer. Like, I'm sure what likely happened is he probably had AHL offers or offers for two-way contracts, and he probably just wasn't interested in doing something like that. He probably
Make a lot more
wanted
money.
yeah, you can make a lot more money in the KHL. And if you do go there and have a very successful season, there's been a lot of, cases where guys have come back and gotten that contract in the NHL they were looking for. So I'd imagine that's probably his thought process. It definitely, sucks that it didn't work out for him in the Flyers. I didn't think that he could be an option for them long term, potentially like on a third line or maybe even fourth line, just the way that he plays with the physicality. I thought he would be a guy that Tortorella liked. But it just seemed like there was a bit of a disconnect there between him and the organization and the way that they really wanted him to play to be successful. And unfortunately, they just weren't able to make it work. But all the best to Wade. He seemed like a really, really good guy. So I hope it works out for him in the KHL and he's able to find his way back to the NHL at some point.
Yeah. So last year they did not produce very well offensively. Former NHLer Pontus Ahlberg was their number one producer, 37 points in 64 games. Not very good. As you can tell, Michkov outpaced him,
Yeah.
alone being an 18, 19-year-old in the KHL.
So Allison's going to be probably one of their top scorers based on
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah, they did have Riley Barber, who was he's actually, I didn't realize this, but he only played 28 games. He had 23 points. I don't know if he was moved on. I'm not sure what their roster is going to look like going into this year. But obviously, as an American, second round pick, he's probably gonna be a top player in the KHL, at least like a top 50 guy. If hopefully he can get his offensive game back. That's something that dropped off considerably this past year for whatever reason. Really just diminished.
Yeah.
And especially because he was going up, and then all of a sudden, just the scoring touch disappeared. For whatever reason, hopefully he regroups and hopefully he makes it back to the NHL. I think it's a wise move for him, to be honest with you. Go get paid, go play against men, go play in a better league than the AHL. Um, And
prove
it's
yourself kind of
it's
deal.
yeah, it's a
So
slightly better league than the AHL, so the level of competition is a little higher and the money's better. Okay. Next piece of news, and this is kind of big news. It's kind of disappointing. We did talk about this before. It seems like I was wrong about this because I was definitely a little bit more optimistic. But out of Belarus, another report come out that essentially Alexei Kolosov is trying to get his KHL team to essentially get his contract terminated with the NHL. We don't not know if this is 100% true. We suspect it is. And look, where there's smoke, these are multiple instances now that it's come up, cannot be ignored at this point. I don't know if this is final. Like, I wouldn't say that him not coming to the NHL is definite. And again, the Flyers will still retain his rights. He's a European player. They'll own his rights forever. So I don't even think it's the end of the world if he doesn't come this year. But it is a little disappointing to hear that the guy doesn't want to come over to the NHL. I suspect that it has more to do with the fact that he doesn't want to play in the AHL. Wants to continue his career in the KHL until he has an NHL chance. But I don't know. That's complete speculation on my part. But it seemed like he didn't love riding the bus in Lehigh. Having said that, he still has a contract with the Flyers, and the Flyers are not incentivized to let him out of that contract. I imagine they're going to continue these conversations and try to get him over here and probably tell him, hey, give it a real chance here. And then if you're really unhappy after 1 year, or a season here in, North America, then we can talk about terminating your contract. And I'm sure that they'd be okay with doing an amicable split if he really doesn't want to be here. Again, I don't think any team really wants a guy that doesn't want to be there. We just saw Kuznetsov getting bought out, who still has NHL talent. He's going over to the KHL. Sometimes that's just what guys want. But it is disappointing. You add in the loss of Carter Hart, now the potential loss of Alexei Kolosov. Yeah, we still have Zavragin, we still have Bjarnason, we have Ersin Fedotov, but that pool that was so deep all of a sudden is losing a little bit of steam. They're going to have to probably look at that at the draft next year where, let's be honest, they got the assets to do that. But it shows why you got to keep drafting goalies and why it's such a crapshoot. Hopefully, Kolosov, if he doesn't come over this year, will still be in consideration and come here. Again, he's what, 22, just turned 23
yeah.
age. So he's still a couple of years from even being NHL relevant. So I don't know if it'd be the end of the world if he doesn't come over this year, but you would want him ideally to come over eventually. And you'd prefer that he develops in the AHL and then take that spot from Fedotov. I think that's what the Flyers were hoping for, and they could have an Ersin Kolosov duo and allow, whichever one of them is best to become the starter, considering they're so close in age. But now I'm not so sure. As the goalie, what are your thoughts?
It's obviously an interesting situation. I think you have to look at the reporting and all the news and all the kind of things surrounding Kolosov and kind of point to the fact that, hey, like where there's smoke, there's likely fire.
Mm-hmm.
One thing to be wary of is this is coming from the same media outlet that reported, the Michkov news, and they eventually got that right. So not to say every news outlet's going to be right about everything, but that's something to take into consideration. This is from sportsexpress.ru, and the source is Ivan Bogan. So just to look at some interesting tidbits, he was actually scheduled, based on some of these articles and several reports, to fly to Pennsylvania on June 20th, but apparently accidentally overslept the flight and
Right.
remained in
Yeah.
Belarus. So who knows what really happened there? I doubt we're really ever going to find
There was
out if it
one
was
flight.
exactly right. So I don't know what happened with that situation, but that's one thing I wanted to add in. And then just looking at the report, essentially how this all comes about is he was spotted at a training with Dynamo Minsk, which is, his KHL team or former KHL team technically before he signed with the Flyers and, was official property of the Flyers. So I think you have to look at it this way. Like there's tons of guys that train in their home country. And I don't think that Dynamo Minsk is going to stop him, a former, goaltender who, played for them in many situations and did a great job, especially in even playoff situations. I don't think they would ever stop him from going to their facilities and training there. So that's one thing to take note of, but it's also not the best scenario to see that, hey, he's back with his old former team, training with probably former teammates. Who knows what they're discussing, what they're talking about. So it just doesn't look good from the surface level based on that.
It's like your girlfriend hanging out with her ex-boyfriend.
Yeah,
They
like
might have broke up, but they're still hanging out.
That's probably not a good thing for you as the current boyfriend. So
Right.
with the Flyers being the current boyfriend in this hypothetical situation, they're probably looking at this and saying like, why is this guy skipping our development camp and then training in Russia with his, former
Yeah.
team? Like he should be coming over to Philly, and
And
cementing himself. So
and just to add, Brent Flair did have kind of that slip up, and I was in the room when he had that slip up, and I definitely noticed it. Um, where he was kind of saying, he said, "Oh, if Kolosov," and then correct, and when Kolosov, comes over, he kind of had that line in there.
yeah,
So
exactly.
they're aware of it. Hopefully, look, a lot of people are going to jump on Danny for that. I don't really know what you can do about a guy just not wanting to come to North America. I don't
Yeah.
think it's specific to the Flyers. So I don't know how you could knock that. Just like how do you knock him for the Cutter Gauthier thing, where it's like the guy just wasn't communicating and leaving. And if you look at the Rucker McGroarty case,
Yeah.
if you actually in comparison, Danny Briere knocked it out of the park with that situation. So I
My
want to
only
give
thing to sorry, go ahead, Yuri.
no, I just say I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and see if he can repair this before time runs out.
Yeah, we'll see. I think definitely Briere realizes and the staff probably realizes the delicate situation.
Yeah.
And you have to factor in like he was one of their um, highly rated goaltending prospects. So taking him away from that pool, it's severely, hurting the goaltending prospects they do have and really how strong of a pool it is. So they're gonna have to focus in the future, if he doesn't come over in terms of the draft. But it was previously reported that Kolosov might not want to return just due to adaptation problems in North America. Obviously, Briere denied this, but this seems to be kind of the root cause. And I would say too that the caveat, like there are ways that the Flyers I think could have handled it better. And the one way, and we talked about this outside of the show, is I do think that they shouldn't have gave so much significant playing time to Cal Peterson over Kolosov. Like he did get to play some AHL games, but the one thing I will criticize is if you're trying to entice this, young essentially dynamo goaltending prospect to come over and kind of establish himself in North America, you should have probably played him as a starter in the playoffs. Even if he doesn't have much experience, you have to notice the fact that, hey, the KHL is a more talented league. He's played in, multiple playoffs for Dynamo Minsk, had a lot of success. Like, what is there to lose by playing him in the playoffs and showing, hey, like you're going to be our number one in Lehigh Valley, where he probably had the assumption that he was going to be the backup goalie before all the Fedotov things unfolded, right? Like he probably thought, hey, I could be like an NHL backup next season potentially. So
Yeah.
now going from a guy who was potentially earmarked to be an NHL backup to coming over to North America and being the backup in the AHL, he's probably saying, I'm not even, starting in the minors. So why would I want to stay over here?
That's
So I
great.
kind of
Great point.
I kind of see it from his perspective where he's probably like, I can go back to my home country. I'm not dealing with, the barriers of not knowing English, not being very assimilated to the culture. I'm around my family and I can be the starter and, on a playoff team, right? So I see it from his perspective. And you have to hope that if that's one of the reasons why he doesn't want to come back due to like his usage and not really getting to start in the playoffs, that Briere and the staff kind of um, discern to him and say that, hey, like we just wanted to ease you into the North American game. It wasn't a slight to your skill. And you would be the starter here if you're gonna come over in the AHL. And obviously the first call-up option if there's any sort of injuries. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention is that he did apparently, based on the report from Sports Express there, um, ask Minsk management to do everything to help him resolve the issue of terminating his contract in the NHL. So who really knows like if that's true or what's going to happen there? Like I suspect the Flyers won't terminate the contract if he does want to, return to
Well,
the KHL. It'll likely be on some sort of loan basis that they worked out this past season where they
yeah.
retain his rights and loan him
Well,
back.
that's what I wanted to say is that they've already done this once for him, right? Because how often do you sign a player and then loan him out for a year
Yeah.
to the team he's playing for so there was already obviously hesitancy to begin with. Um, Now I like what you said about promising him starting position, but let's be honest, they're not going to do that. They don't do that with anybody.
I know.
So the likelihood of them telling him now they could say, "Hey, you're going to have a significant role on this team," but at the end of the day, they do have the attitude of the best guy wins. you know?
Yeah, of course.
They might say, "Hey, we believe you are that guy, but you're gonna have to take it from Peterson," which is the right move. Like he can't start if Peterson is outplaying him, which I don't think is what happened for that NHL for the playoff run. Um, but it's gonna be interesting. We'll see if they can repair it. Again, I think giving him another year in the KHL and then asking him to come for his final year of that contract, I think that's maybe an amicable decision again, be like, hey, okay, take the year again, but come over next year. We're not going to get rid of that contract. We're not going to pay you either.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also a problem that the Flyers will now they did re-sign Gahagan, who was the AHL, ECHL. He played well in the AHL. I think he's 29 years old. So he's like a lifelong AHL, ECHL guy. But they potentially would need another goalie if he does not come over here. So the Flyers would
Yeah.
have to explore that, and that is a contract spot. I don't know what happens with that contract if it slides.
If they
Um,
loan him, I think it would
I
slide.
think
Yeah.
it does, yeah, just because he's a prospect still. Um, so it's interesting. We'll see. We got to give Danny time to resolve the situation. And if we lose Kolosov, look, it's nothing to freak out about, but it sucks. It's a guy that I think we all were high on and looking forward to see if he could replicate what Ersson did because
Yeah.
similar situation, like really good young goalie playing against men on not a very good team and having really good numbers. So, um, but I did notice already that nobody like cares about Fedotov already. Like he's already seen as like a wash, you
Well,
know?
nobody, yeah, right. 3 games played, and everybody like has the book
Yeah.
written on him. I said this last episode. Like, I think he has the ability and the talent to really surprise people. But I do understand the criticism of Briere and the staff, like just in the way that they might have handled this.
Yeah.
I personally think they probably didn't realize or had any, inklings that they were going to be able to get Fedotov to come over. I don't think that was on their radar at all. So they probably were thinking, hey, like we're gonna bring Kolosov over here. We have him signed. He's gonna be the backup to Ersson. Go with a 1-2 punch of a young tandem, and then this Fedotov thing fell in their laps, right? And then what are they gonna do? Say no to bringing over probably one of the best goaltenders not in the NHL, one of the best goaltenders in the last 5 years in the KHL, Olympic MVP for Russia. Like obviously you were not going to say no to that. So I can understand why they chose Fedotov over Kolosov. If that's what it ends, if that's what the situation kind of ends up being here.
Yeah.
I
But they
do get
but
it.
but they know the smart move is to start Kolosov in the minors. Like
Of course,
just
yeah.
like Erson, they all need
Well, think
some
about
seeding time.
Shesterkin. He
Yeah.
played, half a season in Hartford to get acclimated, right? So
Right. And he came over at
he's
24, I think.
24 exactly.
Right.
Plays half a season and 25 season started with the
So
Rangers. So it's not out of the ordinary for KHL goalies to come over and have
well
an
that
adjustment period.
yeah. That's why I don't want to assume it's the end. Right. It's like, okay,
Exactly.
well maybe he doesn't develop in the AHL. Maybe we let him develop in the KHL. We bring him over to the NHL when we think he's ready. Because Fedotov's got 2 years on this deal. We'll see if he works out. If he doesn't work out, we probably won't have a better option out there than bringing over I would assume would be a star goalie from the KHL, similar situation. We bring him over, at 24 years old, 25,
Yep.
when goalies are really supposed to enter the NHL and get their cup of coffee. Um, yeah. So the other goaltending prospect and somebody I would say I'm even higher on at this point, but because the promise is so high, because his numbers were so stupid good in the VHL, and
Insane, yeah.
when Steve Kornianos tells us that Vladimir Tretiak is calling this kid like the next great Russian goaltender, and the Flyers have him, Igor Zavragin seems to be potentially a steal in this draft at the third round. We don't know yet. He's still super early in his career, but he did sign a deal with Michkov's former team, SKA St. Petersburg. And we were trying to figure out what would happen to him because he's 19 years old. They don't play young guys. They have three goalies. It's like,
Yeah.
what are they going to do with them?
And
So
they're
they
definitely not playing him. So
yeah. So they went to their partner team, somebody they obviously have a good relationship with, and have officially loaned him out to HC Sochi. So I don't know if he's going to be the starter there, but it does give him an opportunity to play a good amount of games in the KHL. So I do think it's good from that perspective. They're not a great team. So the good news is he's gonna see a lot of action, at least in net. So we'll see how he handles it, but it's going to be an interesting story to follow up on. And then, on his development track, if he works out, we might not even be talking about Kolosov down the line because we give Zavragin a couple years. And again, we still have Bjarnason, who's under full control of the Flyers, and they'll probably bring him over to the AHL, and he'll probably take time to turn into something anyway, just looking at his success so far at Brandon. That Zavragin will be a big name coming over when he's ready. And I think it's a good thing he's going to Sochi.
Yeah, I agree. I think definitely if you look at his stats in the VHL, he was probably too good for that league, in a sense, right? So it's obviously good for him to graduate up to the KHL. It's good that Ska loaned him over to the Sochi because I don't think he was really going to get the playing time on Ska as we've seen in the past with how they treat their younger players.
Yeah.
So with Sochi, he's going to be splitting time actually with I believe what's his name here? Let me pull it up or try to find it. He's going to be splitting time with Sergei Ivanov. So he's a Columbus Blue Jackets prospect. He's also pretty young as well. So he's going to get quite a good amount of starts. It's not like he's like paired up with a veteran KHL goalie where he's going to be strictly the backup. So it's a really good situation for his development. And it'll be interesting to see how he stacks up against Ivanov as well, right? Because if he outperformed his counterpart, who's, a little bit older than him, that kind of just speaks to the potential that this kid really has. And I think your Trecciat point is really interesting, obviously. Like if a legendary goalie is calling out that, hey, pay attention to this kid, he's going to be one of the best. It's similar to like a Ken Dryden or like a Patrick Waugh doing it for Canadian goalie, or I guess on the American side, like a John Van Beesbrook or something like that. Like when you have like a really good goalie from the past kind of calling out and putting the reputation on the line, they don't do
Yeah.
that for no reason. So I think it's something to take notice. And the fact that he's going to be playing, almost a split type of role in Sochi, and he could even potentially take the starter role because it's another young goalie, like it's probably the best path for his development right now.
I just realized he doesn't turn 19 till August 23rd, which means
So I
he
mean,
was
he's very
also
young.
very, very late, or very young for his draft year, just like Luchenko. And being a goalie, that's, man, I don't know what this kid's going to turn out to be, but on the surface level right now, it's pretty stupid. So just to go over his numbers again in the VHL this past year, which again is the AHL of the KHL, he had a 1.6 goals against and a 0.943 save percentage in 17 games. In the MHL games he played, so their juniors league, he had a 1.63 goals against and a 0.945.
It's like
Um,
Brodeur numbers.
yeah, and again, very consistent from both leagues. So we'll see. We'll see how many games he gets, but hopefully he gets more than 20. Hope maybe maybe he can get it to like 25 to 30 range, but he is a younger. And then I saw they have a tryout goalie as well. I'm not sure if he'll end up being the guy, but they'll have a very young goaltending duo if they go with the 18-year-old and the
He's definitely
20-year-old.
going to get a lot of practice as a goalie there. So I wouldn't say like don't take his numbers as the end all be all. Just because Sochi's such a bad team. So there's going to be games where he gets lit up, but like you have to understand as a goalie for him to just be getting tons of shots at the highest level from top KHL teams that can only be good for his development. Obviously, you don't want him to get blasted in there. Like that's never a good thing. But
Yeah.
Sochi's defense isn't that great. So he's gonna get peppered, and I think that's really a good thing. It's a trial by fire as a goaltender. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs. But I wouldn't say like if you see his numbers as like 890 type of save percentage, that's not alarming because Sochi stinks. So I mean,
Yeah.
there's gonna be games where they get outscored, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, we'll see how they do. His playoff numbers also, he was 4-4 in the VHL playoffs, 2.11 goals against and a 0.933 save percentage. So again, the KHL, they do tend to have higher save percentages there in general. But then the one MHL game he played, he had a shutout. And he won. He only lost, if you include, so regular season between he had one loss in the yeah, he had one loss in the VHL, 13
And
and
how many
1.
games?
Yeah, well, he was 13 and 1.
Also, 14 games, one loss.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that he started. He played in 17. And then he was 6-1 and 2, two ties in the MHL. And then the playoffs MHL, he was 1-0-0, one win, and then had 4 wins, 4 losses in the VHL. So very impressive numbers for an 18-year-old kid, or 17, 18 actually, throughout that. Very, very impressive stuff. Okay. Our next story is there are 7 players that will prospects. I'm sorry, seven Flyers prospects that will be attending the summer showcase. For Canada, you have Carson Bjarnason, Jet Luchenko, Denver Barkey, Oliver Bonk, Carter Sotheran. Then you have Noah Powell for Team USA and Jack Berglund for Sweden. And this is just cool. Obviously, top players from their year. I do expect Luchenko to be like a staple there. Same with Barkey and Bonk. Southern, I think, is probably a guy who I don't know if he's going to be on everybody's radar. And I think Bjarnason is a guy who was on everyone's radar, kind of dropped down a little bit after being drafted because he didn't progress so much in the numbers. But I'm excited for them to get a showcase. Noah Powell, we know how well he did in the U.S. Hockey League, leading all forwards and point and goals there. So that is a good opportunity for him to get showcased. And then Jack Berglund, who is one of the best Swedish prospects, in the world. Not doesn't necessarily project to be like a top line player or anything like that, but he probably will play a significant bottom six role for Sweden, I assume. What are your
Yeah, it's
thoughts?
obviously a good thing for these young guys to get the opportunity to play for their countries, on an international stage and showcase their skills. This can always be a really telling tournament in terms of who these teams might select for like their respective World Junior Championship teams that are in the following,
Yeah,
months. So a lot of the times, guys that really, blow teams' doors off at these types of summer showcases, end up, turning heads and then they make that World Junior Championship team. So I think it's an opportunity for some of these guys that might not be on the radar already. Like I would imagine Barkey and Bonk are probably on the radar for that World Junior Championship
yeah.
team just based on their production. A guy like Lichenko though might not. So this could be
I I think
this
he is. I
yeah,
think
he
he
may
is
be,
already.
but he might, there's always older guys like 19-year-olds,
True.
20-year-olds and things
Yeah,
like
you're
that.
right.
So they might take precedence, but if he like has a really great tournament, they're going to think, "Hey, we might as well put this guy in because he's going to be on the team in the next couple of years here. So let's get him acclimated
Yeah,
to the tournament and to this, team in general." I think Bjarnason, from what I saw, actually might be starting for Canada at the summer showcase. So
nice.
that'll be good for him to kind of rebound and build, his kind of prospect profile back up because since he was drafted, like you said, there has been some concerns about his development. But I do think just being on a team like Brandon that hasn't been really great for the last couple of seasons, it can be tough as a goalie, right? Because
Yeah,
your numbers don't really tell the story when you're getting peppered every night with 40 plus shots. So it could be tough. So it'll be good to see him behind a more solid defense and see kind of what he can do. For Powell and Berglund, I think it's really an opportunity for them to turn heads, especially for Powell, just with
yeah,
where he was selected in the draft. Obviously, a late bloomer in terms of being drafted, but led the USHL in goals. That's nothing to balk at. So I think this will be a chance for him to really cement himself and potentially, grab a spot at the World Juniors coming up here. But just in general, it's a good tournament for these guys to be a part of. You're always, in a best on best type of situation in terms of your age group here. So you can really showcase your skills and show, other teams that, and, even your own, team that drafted you in these situations, that the development is still progressing even just after being drafted. So
yeah. No, it's great to see. It's great to see so many of the Flyers prospects are even on the radar, especially for Canada, because of how competitive
definitely.
that program is. So it's good stuff. All right, just want to take a break here and just remind everybody, please like and subscribe. If you made it this far and you're not subscribed, please subscribe now. Give us a like if you can. Also follow us on iTunes and Spotify as well. You can follow us there for the audio versions and give us a rating there if you can. That would be a humongous help to us. Okay. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go through draft picks, and I
This
gotta
is the fun
find.
part.
Yeah, this is the fun part. I gotta find how to share my screen because I forget every single time. Why can I not find this?
I always blame Zoom's interface, right? Like
Yeah,
if they
because
just
it's
where's
changed
the
on me.
where's the share button? Like you're on Microsoft Teams, it literally says share.
Yeah.
Zoom's
And
like, fuck you. You're not allowed to share, you know?
it's driving me nuts because here we go. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to move these windows over. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through the last 14 years of drafts and we're going to show why I myself, and Vasili, I believe you fall into this camp as well, do not care about draft rankings, and why when people freak out over who is ranked higher, how
Yep.
majority of the time it is irrelevant. Um, so if we look at this past draft year, we don't really have anything to go off of, right? We know who is drafted recently. We know guys like Z Boyum, obviously really high on everybody's list. I loved him. I loved Berkeley Catton, T. Ginla. Again, this was supposed to be a pretty good draft, not like the best ever, but enough, where most of these guys should at least be NHL players in the first round. If we start going back 1 year, we go to the Michkov draft, and we look at the what I like to do here is I like to sort by point totals, right? Um, and we look at this one. Obviously, majority of these players have not really played. Now Columbus and Carolina did have kind of guys who were taken at 30 and 34, kind of get their taste of hockey. And we're excluding goaltenders here because we're going to go just off of like offensive production because goalies take forever anyway to develop. But you can see already like Zachary Benson, who was highly touted at the time, was taken at 13.
I think he
He
fell too far. Just, I mean, in hindsight, I think he
Yeah,
should have been a little bit earlier.
of
But
course,
yeah,
yeah.
it's the size. It's the size, Yariv, with him
Yeah.
that
And I
holds him
think
back.
we all kind of knew that at the time. I don't think anybody really expected him to fall all the way to 13. I think that was lower than I think the lowest at the time was like 9.
Yeah, 9 or 10.
Yeah. Now it's really hard to tell what's going on in a draft like this because quite frankly, a lot of these guys have not played. Like Matvey Michkov has not played here, who I expect to finish second on this list behind Connor
Arguably
Bedard.
should have probably been drafted second if you just look at
Right.
all the mitigating factors. But what are you
Yeah.
gonna do?
And you look at the pace that Carlson Fantilli went on, it's like a 45-point pace, pretty damn good. Maybe even potentially 50 points. And then Connor Bedard is on like a 70 plus point pace in his rookie
And
year,
even
which
got
is
hurt. If he played the full 82, he
right.
probably would have been like near 70 plus
Without a
points.
broken jaw. Yeah. The kid is phenomenal. Like I love Connor Bedard. I stab a dolphin to have him on this team. So
To be
no.
honest, though, that Bedard production, like 61 points, like I wouldn't be surprised to see Michkov have something similar
Right.
around that range, right, in his
Right.
rookie year.
Yeah, and that's why if Bedard was able to put up 61 points in 68 games in his rookie year, and we're looking at a Michkov in his draft year, and we're looking at Michkov plus 1 year, you look
And
at that
full
60.
82
Yeah, you look at
as
that
well.
60, assuming, hopefully, assuming that that's the case, I don't think a 60-point season is out of range for him at all. Which would fall into that generational pace where a lot of guys who are I don't know if even generational pace, but like that elite pace, like the Nathan McKinnons who hit 60 points, like those guys. That's not a set rule, but you do sometimes see that with a lot of these upper echelon players. They'll come in and put 60 points in their rookie year and kind of never look back. So I do kind of see like 60 points is appropriate. So we'll go to 2022 and we'll look at the current draft. And obviously, a lot of these guys haven't played either yet, right? And Rucker McGrarty is a name that's been out there. Some of these guys are in college. But you look already like Daniil Yurov is killing it in the KHL. He's most likely going to be a good NHL player, we assume. Jimmy Snuggerud, we know, was a really good prospect. But as you come down, you see a lot of these guys already. You can see if I, yeah,
Poitras at 54, right? Like,
exactly. So already, if we start sorting by points, some of these guys who were already kind of taken, later in the draft, like Poitras, like you're saying, Luchenko's
from
teammate,
Guelph.
right,
Yeah.
already put up 15 points in 33 games. Was not expected to be that guy. Lane Hudson, who we know that now, was a guy who already saw NHL success, really outdid, outkicked his coverage there. Yes, Slavkovsky leads everybody in points for the most part. Why is this not sorting properly? Hold on a second, let me refresh. Um, leads that crop in points, but really Logan Cooley is, kind of the guy. Pavel Minituk, who plays for Anaheim, Minikov, I'm sorry. He had a really good rookie year, which is part of the reason that they were ready to move on from Jamie Drysdale. Simon Nemec, who was kind of touted as like the greatest defenseman ever. Modest career so far in his first year. Kevin Korchinski also, considered really highly touted, 15 points in 76 games. Again, not like lighting the world on fire. David Juracek, we know he has not been what Columbus wanted him, and that's a lot of people wanted the Flyers to take him over Cutter Gauthier. And Cutter Gauthier did get 1 point already in his only showing in this past year. We'll see how he does in his rookie year. And then Frank Nazar, we know Chicago's high on him, but you see he was a number 13 pick and already kind of touching the NHL. And this is a little bit too early. This is hard to make our point.
Yeah, the last two drafts it's really hard,
Yeah,
obviously, or the last
because it takes
latest
time.
drafts.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's really what I want to show. Like, it takes time there really for a lot of these guys to develop. Just because they're getting drafted doesn't mean they're coming to the league. And, we know all about Shane Wright, who was supposed to be the first overall pick in this draft. And we'll see how he turns out. I'm not going to assume that he's a bust or anything like that. A 7 points, 16 games is really not that bad. But again, he didn't come into the NHL like dominating. Struggled to stay in the NHL. We'll see how he does,
Yeah.
though.
And fell considerably in that draft. So
Right. Yeah. Well, considerably to number 4, but yeah.
when you're the number one pick, that's not
Right.
expected.
Yes.
Or expected number one pick. Anyway.
Yes. Um. Okay. In 2021,
This is where
where
it could really make some headway,
Yeah.
I think, Yariv.
Right, exactly. So this is where it starts becoming more relevant. It's been 3 years, and again, the average prospect takes about 3 years to develop anyway. And you look at this group, and you see some of the guys who were taken, near the top here, haven't even played in pros. Some of the guys have had like a cup of coffee, but
Tyler
really
Boucher.
really haven't had too much. Um, now, if I sort by points, the first overall pick from this draft would have been Wyatt Johnson, who we all know had a very successful year this year for Dallas. He's already got 106 points and
But
164 games played.
Yariv, I thought you couldn't select talented players in the
Right.
20s of the draft.
Yes.
I never
Um,
knew.
right now, yeah. Now, Matty Beniers also having very good numbers with Seattle. I think he's been a big hit for them. Definitely a solid pick. He had a down year this past year, but that is kind of typical. Players will come into the NHL of a better rookie year than their sophomore year. That does tend to happen. Then you look at JJ Moser, who also number 60 pick, defenseman, put up 72 points in 205 games. Pretty good for a two-way defenseman at a young age. Pretty much outdoing Owen Power. Now, Owen Power did not join like immediately, right? He took that extra year at college. Definitely not talking down on the guy who's a two-way defenseman, a really good pick. But just because you were taken first overall, Owen Power seems to be a lot like an Eric Johnson type, right? Just going to be a really good defenseman, never going to be putting up like 70 points in the league. We'll see. Maybe he will develop that way, but we'll see. And then you can see things kind of peppering out. Matthew Nyes taken in the second round, 57 overall. Clearly was a really good pick. We know Luke Hughes is a really good pick. Nobody's down on him. William Eklund's had a cup of coffee, right? But then you start seeing the other guys kind of getting peppered in there who are getting a little bit more, playing time earlier on in their career versus, a lot of other guys who were drafted above them who have yet to even make the NHL or touch the NHL.
Yeah.
Carson Lambos being on there, Chaz Lucius, Tyler Boucher, right? Maybe these guys will still come out, and obviously Sebastian Cossa is a goaltender, so who knows when he's
Well,
gonna really
think
play.
I think a big thing, Yariv, is if you scroll up there and you look at the top 20, only 8 in the top 20 are top 10 picks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you see that a lot of, the production is coming from guys that were picked a little bit later, like late first round, mid first round. early second round. So it's interesting. Obviously, there's still a lot of time for these players. Like
Yeah.
some guys that are picked in the top 10 could pop off and really surpass some of these later picks, but just shows you that it's not always, those top end guys that are going to be the producers. Like
Well,
I said, the top 20 here, it's only 8 guys in the top 20 from the top 10. So
right. And if you think that this pattern goes away as we move back in time, you are wrong. Um, it is consistent with every year, and we will show you. So we'll go back another year to the 2020 draft. This is
oh,
Tyson Forrester's
this is
draft.
a fun draft.
Right. So now we know Alex Lafreniere came in lights out. We know everybody's high on Quentin Byfield. He just got a big contract. Tim Stützle right now is arguably the best player from this draft, even though Alex Lafreniere definitely improved considerably this past
I would
year.
say that was his breakout season, essentially.
Yeah, and we know Askarov is still kind of stuck in the minors, but not necessarily because he's not good, but because of Nashville's goaltending situation. So again, Tyson Forrester really only got to play his first year season in the league this year at 2021. And he had a really good rookie season, 23 goals, 17 assists. Now, if we sort by points, did that work? I feel like this is like kind of wonky. There we go. Okay, so Tim Stützle, clear cut, number 3 pick. Right now, he is the closest guy to a point a game. Lucas Raymond's been a great pick. Again, top 5 pick. And Alex Lafreniere, I don't think in any way he's a bust, and it seems to be getting better and better. Now, if you look at that list, Seth Jarvis at 13, where Jet Luchenko was taken, he's the 4th on that list right now. Dawson Mercer was 18. He's 5th on that list. Anton Lindell, who is 12, is 6th on the list. Quentin Byfield below them. He had 5 goals last year, right?
Yeah.
Again, the games played matters. We're just showing you the rate to make it in the league and how they necessarily do. Cole Perfetti, like everybody wants Cole Perfetti. He's got 75 points in 140 games. That's like Tyson Forrester pace, right?
Yep.
Uh, Jake Sanderson, who's a really good young defenseman. I'm not putting
Got
down
a
70
huge
points.
contract, though.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
for 70 points in 156 games. Again, similar to Slavkovsky, they got that contract because they're trying to jump ahead of it. They see where the guy's progressing, right? We're still looking at young guys here. But you can see a lot of these guys who were kind of drafted lower, Luke Evangelista, um, Chika,
Chinnikov.
Chinnikov, again, you look at these guys, they're having really good young career. Brock Faber, 45th pick. We know how well he played this
He
year.
was really good, yeah.
Exactly. That's a second round pick guy.
Well, Yariv,
Arguably he's the best defenseman from this draft right now.
it's the same exact theme. If you look at the top 20 listed here in points, only 8 of the top 20 are top 10 picks. So
Right.
yeah, like half is, and that's not saying that, you being in the top 10 is a bad thing because half of these guys are in there, but the 12 of them are guys that are way later than the top 10. So it kind of just shows that it's not always just in that top 10 where you can find the talent.
Right. There are like almost no guarantees here, right? It's like that's really what.
Outside of the top 5, like look at this list. Number 3, Stutzla's leading. 4, Raymond. Lafreniere 1. Byfield 2. Sanderson. You get out of that top 5 though, and it really drops off from there. So
Right. And Jamie Drysdale, who we're still all really high on him, and 50 points in 147 games, not bad at all.
yeah, and he's
Um,
had injuries, but like
it's
I said,
very similar to Jake Sanderson.
it's still no guarantee. Obviously, he's gonna have to, keep producing and
Yeah.
developing. So
Right. But then you look at guys like Holtz, who was traded recently. I mean, he was the number 7 pick. He didn't come into the league and light the world on fire. I don't know what his ceiling is. And I'm not talking down on these guys as if some of these guys might not pass others. Some of these guys who were highly touted, they might just take a little bit longer, like Quentin Byfield. If you look at this list, and I'll open up Byfield here real quick. If you look at this list, I mean, last year he had 22 points in 53 games. This
yeah,
was his.
it's taken him a while. So
Yeah, he had 3 goals. You know what I mean? Like, imagine that you drafted this guy and he had 3 goals for you in his second year in the NHL. Like, you'd be considerably worried. Even though the point production is actually not that bad, it's like a 30-point season, but it took him a little bit of time to kind of find his way. So a lot of people expect these like guaranteed, but a lot of these guys kind of found their way earlier or at the exact same time. Or a guy like Anton Lindell, who's a two-way player, found the offensive success. This is what I'm hoping we'll see in Luchenko, who's a guy who can produce at both ends of the ice and play against better players in the world defensively as well. So let's move on to next year's draft. And this is a Jack Hughes draft, and this is where Cam York was taken. Again, this was a really strong draft in my opinion, but we know about Capo Caco, who not a horrible player at all. I wouldn't even say a bad player. Good player, but
I just think this
obviously,
was a deep first round if you look at the list.
yeah. So if you resort and you see number 12, Matt Boldy, kind of leading the pack, we know what kind of what kind of career he's had so far, kind of comparable to Jack Hughes
Yeah.
offensively. Dylan Cousins, who was seventh, also really strong young career. We know about Trevor Zegras, who got taken at 9. Obviously, everybody loves Trevor Zegras. Struggles defensively, but here Cole Caulfield, nobody should have doubted his ability to produce offensively, especially goals. Right, 81 goals in 205 games. It's very good. And then, but he was taken 15th. Now he did drop, but he's out producing the number 2 pick, Capo Caco, and honestly, probably will continue to be a better player. Michelli, a guy who surprised me, and I very noticeable when you watch Arizona. I mean, this is a late third round pick, and he's already having a great career, 112 points in 169 games. Like that's really good. Alex Newhook, everybody's really high on him. Was moved already, producing under 50%, under 500 points, right? Per game, right?
Yep.
So not great.
And
Kirby Doc.
one, yeah, and I think I'm just gonna keep pointing this out on everyone because we've been doing it. But like out
Yeah.
of the top 20, only 7 of the top 20 were actually top 10 draft picks. So
Yeah. And this is actually my favorite part because Mort Sider's a home run, and I love Bowen Byram, and I would say he's a home run too, and I expect his productivity to go up. But if you
agreed.
notice who's right here,
York,
60 points in 169 games, and Bowen Byram has 72 in 164 games.
really
Not a
similar.
big difference for a guy who's touted as
And
this like
I
offensive.
would, yeah, and I would say too that like York's probably got the defensive edge on Byram in terms of overall gameplay, like playing against top pairing or not top pairing, his top lines. Like he essentially played against top lines all season, where Byram was not playing against top lines, maybe when he got to Buffalo, but definitely
Yeah.
not in Colorado.
Yeah. I mean, he's having a better career than Vasili Podkolzin right now, right?
Damn Vasili.
Yeah. Peyton Krebs, who's a guy that's come up in trade rumors a lot. Not a bad start. 66 points, 200. I wouldn't consider that bad. But who would you rather have? Peyton Krebs, Cam York, Shane Pinto's on this list. We all like him. He was 32 pick, right? Arthur Kaliev was highly ranked, dropped,
Yeah.
right? Hollinger, he also
The
number 40 pick.
crazy, the crazy one for me is Capo Caco. Like he's up there, but it's really only because he's played 300 games. Whereas like majority of this list is not even close to the 300 game mark. I imagine when they all get to 300 games, they're going to surpass him immensely. So
Right. And that's the thing. It's like you would think that the numbers actually even out more as you time goes on. It's like no, you notice more guys from that end of the second round, that end of the first round tend to make their way up these lists. And this is why I don't care about rankings anymore. Because it's so hard to predict
yeah,
these things. It's
well
not
you
a knock on the
can,
scouts.
of course, and you can get really good players in the top 10. Like obviously on these lists, there's top 10 guys that were picked that are in the top 20 of points, but like there's a lot of guys that were picked in that top 10 that aren't there. So and even like top 15, top 20, right? So it just kind of shows you that it's not only exclusive to, top 15 picks where, oh, if we don't pick in that top 15, we can't get a talented guy. Like
Right. Which
look at Michelli, look at other guys in this list like Hoglander, like even a York, for example. So
yeah. Yeah. And I mean Matthew Boldy was taken at 12, you know.
yeah, exactly. And he's
That
been lights
USNT
out. So
program. Yeah, yeah. I mean, right now he's doing better than Zegras, who was taken at 9, who I was higher on
well,
Zegras in the
Boldy's
draft
goal
here.
scoring ability is nuts. He has a great shot. So
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to predict. I mean, everybody knew he'd be a good player, just don't know to what degree.
Yeah.
So let's go to 2017. This is
Oh, our
the
favorite
Nolan. Yeah, this
draft.
is our favorite draft, the 2017 draft. Oh wait,
Is
did
it
I
gonna
skip?
be
Oh, I skipped the draft year. I just realized that.
it's all good.
Well, let's fix that because 2018 matters too. Let me do that.
Definitely.
All right, so let's go to 2018 and we'll go to the dreaded one in a minute here. But so we'll look at that Rasmus Dahlin pick, which was a very good pick. And then Svechnikov also. And then you have Kotakaniemi, who's a good player. Shouldn't have been drafted third overall. I think a lot of people knew that at the time. Maybe probably the best player from this draft, Brady Tkachuk. Barrett Hayton also was a little bit of a reach. Didn't work out. Zadina, which everybody thought would be like a top three pick,
Didn't work out
also has
really.
not panned out. Quinn
Even in
Hughes,
San Jose, he's moving on for them as well. So
right? Yeah. Quinn Hughes, we know all about him. That's a home run of a pick at lucky number 7. Adam Boquist, who was just
I
bought
just think
out.
he hasn't gotten a lot of opportunity because when I've watched him, I really liked his game. I just think he's a small defenseman and
Yeah.
he hasn't gotten a fair shake,
He's a guy
unfortunately.
that I actually was hoping the Flyers would take a run at, but did not work out that way.
Not a lot of room on the defense, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. And then Vitaly Kravtsov, who has worked out for the Rangers, really, really highly touted. Evan Bouchard, we know what he did this past year. Oliver Wahlstrom, who was taken above Joel Farabee, looking more to be like a third line player in the NHL. Now, if we sort this out, Joel Farabee is sixth on this list in points. For
Yeah.
all you Joel Farabee haters, and yes, there are defensemen on this list as well. Very highly touted defensemen: Noah
Yeah.
Dobson, Evan Bouchard, Rasmus Dahlin, Quinn Hughes. These are elite defensemen in the league. But you see that Joel Farabee is doing a great job production wise, considering the injury, the caliber of team he's done. Yes, he could do better. But if you look at a redraft, at least even early on, this is clear cut. He probably should have gone even higher than where he was taken.
Yeah. He's above what, like four like top 10 picks. So that just shows, right? That like
Yeah.
you had guys touted above him in that top 10 and obviously weren't able to kind of match his production. So it just shows once again, like everybody always thinks, well, if the Flyers are competing for a playoff spot and they're in that 14 to 12 range, there's no way they can get a talented guy that can really contribute. But once again, it's kind of proving that it is possible to get that guy at that range. So
Yes. Yeah. And I think the Flyers are about to prove it again with Michkov at 7. Now Sharon Kovic, we all know about him. I mean, he's not great defensively, but he's been very good offensively. He's 141st in the draft.
yeah,
Kurashev, one of Chicago's best players. He's had a pretty good career so far. Sean Dursey, taking a second round. We know how good he is. He's a really good defenseman to grab in the second round. Keandre Miller, who probably should have been a Flyer. Really good pick at the end of the second round. Again, could continue to get better. These guys are all young. I know a lot of people are going to look at them as fully developed products, and while Brady Tkachuk is, and Quinn Hughes is, and Svechnikov is, and Darlene is, a lot of these guys are still making their way up the charts. But you can see that the best players from this draft are kind of exposing themselves, and they're kind of all here at the top, and Joel Farabee is one of them. Like a guy like Joel Veleno was really highly touted. Kalen Addison, I remember everybody from the Flyers wanted Kalen Addison, right? Joel Farabee has been a better player than Kalen Addison, right? Jack Drury, a guy that everybody was really high on, also dropped in the draft. But you can see his numbers are all over the place. Like guys from all through the draft are at the top of production. And these are not throwaway players. These guys are still pretty young and they're all kind of making their way. And some of these guys might have breakout years. And I think Joel Farabee is going to be one of them. I actually kind of expect this year to be a big year for him. I got mocked for that online. People are just like, oh, he doesn't have it. Well, I guess then the rest of the draft doesn't have it then. And that none of these guys will produce anything. So let's go to the dreaded 2017 year, which It's painful to watch considering the players taking around Nolan Patrick. Obviously,
Well,
Nico.
just think instead of Patrick, we actually drafted Owen Tippett. That's the way to look at
Or yeah, exactly. So if we resort this one and now we have, more time, obviously Cal Foot involved in the Carter Hart situation and all that, or the Canada situation, let's say Carter Hart. So if we sort this by points, which I don't know why it does that every now and then, it just like wonks out. So Elias Pettersson right now has been the best producer at over a point per game. Nico Hischier has been awesome. I think that's a great first round pick, or first overall pick. Even if he didn't produce offensively, above a point per game, he is a very good two-way player. Cale Makar, the best player from the draft. Let's be honest, he's a defenseman. He's over a point a game. Uh, that's so rare. Looks to be potentially generational. Robert Thomas, end of the first round, having a great early career with St. Louis, mid 20s. We know about Jason Robertson, one of
Look
the
at
best players
that
in the
point
world,
total. Like 314 points in 292 games. He is a stud.
and he was taken in the second round.
Yeah, 39th overall.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nick Suzuki at number 13, the comparable that we've heard to Luchenko. Again, high producing player in juniors, has lived up to the bill. Heiskanen is awesome. Everybody loves him. I think we'd all love to have him. Martin Necas, a guy that's come up considerably, pretty good career, really good numbers there. Playing wing now, not center. Drake Batherson, he's been really good. Again, he was 121st in the draft, playing top 6 minutes for Ottawa. Casey Middlestat, a guy who had a slower start, but now on his way up. Philip Cheadle, been a good player, and then Owen Tippett, who is also a slow start player. Um,
Only
again, played
270 games played,
right,
like a
played
lot
less.
less.
Yeah, played a lot less games, but looks like he is in that top 10 range. If you look at the total amount, looks like he was drafted where he was supposed to. Keller Yamamoto, a guy who is highly touted, but um, kind of, I guess, underperformed to a degree. He's really just
Hasn't
undersized.
translated,
Yeah,
really.
he's small. I think that's his problem. Eli Tolvanen, who again was got taken later than most people expected, has outproduced that so far. Had some struggles, but is getting better. So we'll see where he.
Was looking pretty good on Seattle, so
Right, exactly. We'll see how his game rebounds. Michael Rasmussen, looking like a pretty good, middle six forward. Again, but it was taken ninth. Morgan Frost at 27, who was considered a reach at this point, isn't doing that bad, considering he's got 110 points in 229 games and has been improving still.
yeah, he's
More,
18th technically out of the like points list here. So well above where he was drafted. And just once again, like out of the top like the top 20 in points here from this draft, there's only 6 players from the top 10 that were
yeah.
selected. So once again,
And
another theme here.
yeah, and you do see, especially this was considered like a weaker draft. Like a guy like Cody Glass was taken sixth overall, you know,
Patrick obviously didn't work out as
right.
well.
And Noah Cates, you can see he was one of the steals of this draft, being a fifth round pick.
He's the only 5th round pick, really, I think, up until that point. So,
Yeah, well, Sebastian Aho, the defenseman's on here as well.
well, I just mean like before his name's listed, he's the only fifth
Yeah,
round pick, which is
yeah.
nuts.
And yeah, the first round does matter, but it's not a guarantee of star players or anything like that. And it's not a guarantee that you're going to
But
get the best player from the draft.
yeah, I
And
think
this
what this
year,
is,
closer.
I think Yariv, what this is kind of showing and is kind of cementing for me is in the first round, there's going to be talent regardless. It's going to be littered all over the first round. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can only find talent in the top 10 as we're seeing, right? Like there's a lot
Yep,
of guys that produced here that were, picked in the 20s, picked in the teens. So
yep. It doesn't have to be a top five pick for you to find a great player in the draft. And
look at
obviously,
Robertson.
Thomas and Jason Robertson, Nick Suzuki,
Oh yeah.
Martin Necas, like these are all Drake Batherson, like these are all examples of that. Um, and let's go to the next one. Oh, here's that 2018. That's why it was out of order. Okay, let's go to the next one. 2016
This
is
is a
Austin
fun
Matthews.
draft.
Yeah. So this one's an interesting one because, Uli Levy was taken so high and has never really worked out.
Alex Nylander as well.
Yep, yep. So let's sort by points on this one. And again, it's not working.
Ah, no worries.
There we go. Okay. So Matthews at Chuck, obviously, you know, phenomenal player. Nobody got
Matthews, you
Austin
can't,
Matthews,
speaks for itself.
right? Alex DeBrincat, a player who was supposed to go in the first round, ended up dropping.
That was a
Um,
mistake, it seems.
Yep,
So
obviously, probably should have been taken above Patrick Laine, who, a lot of people kind of see Laine as a bust, but I would not say that this is a bust.
not at all.
Had some injury problems. It still has potential to put up more, in my opinion. It could be a rebound year for him. I think with him, it's a little bit more of an attitude of just not.
I wonder like where
I
he'll
mean,
get traded. So
yeah, nobody really knows so far, but I imagine he doesn't really want to be in Columbus, which I can understand. Um,
Brat's a
uh,
huge one.
yeah, Clayton Keller looking good, and then Jasper Bratt, 162nd overall in that draft, having a great NHL career, which is really interesting to see. Dubois, who had a great start to his career, has fallen off since then. Adam Fox, third round pick. We all know Adam Fox. 66th overall. Charlie McAvoy was at 14. Um, I guess arguably the best defenseman from the draft outside of Fox. Neither one of them were taken in the top 10. Jordan Kyrou, 35th overall. Tage Thompson, 26th overall. Brandon Hagel, who, again, I still don't know why. I mean, they got a great return for Hagel, so I do understand why they traded him. But both players they traded him for are not great players.
Yeah. It's more the
He,
draft capital, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, they were going for, I think they got 2 first round picks for him. So
Yeah, exactly.
they definitely got a hell of a return. Jacob Chikrin was slated to go higher. I think looking at this, he probably went exactly where he was supposed to. Which,
Gerard's a big one for me here.
yeah, Samuel Gerard, undersized, right?
Yep.
So kind of ignored. Tyson Yost was highly taught. Now he's kind of moving around the NHL. Dylan Dubé, good player, but Luke Kunin, again, good player, not lighting the world on fire. Sam
Oh,
Steele came in
yeah.
with a lot of momentum. Um,
Puljujärvi's really the big bust here at 4, I would say.
yeah, it's a huge bust.
I would say though, like it's the same theme. Like out of the top 20, 6 guys are picked within the top 10 here. So it's just kind of showing like the majority of these guys in the top 20 in points of this draft year are not top 10 selections. Like it's only
Yeah,
6 guys. Obviously you have Matthews and Kachuk, and that's a whole other level to get to, but
yeah,
it's just crazy to see. And really the theme I'm looking at here too is that if you're looking for defensemen, in these drafts, like they're typically like a lot of the really good ones are in like the second round and things like that. So
right. Yeah. And you always
yeah,
seem to find an elite scorer in that second or third round.
yep.
And then there's weird ones like Jasper Bratt, who was taken in the sixth round. Probably was undersized in his draft
Type
year,
of
is my guess.
situation.
Yeah. So let's go to 2015. This is the Connor McDavid draft. Let's be honest. He's incredible. This one is
Wow.
interesting because this is just a really strong draft overall.
Look at his
Um,
points compared to the rest of the
it's
field.
absolutely insane.
He
He
almost has a
is
thousand points in his career already.
he's
That's nuts to me.
pure generational talent. Like I have not
Yeah.
seen anybody play like this guy.
He's literally on the level of like, okay, Lindros, Gretzky, Lemieux. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
I
it.
would put him above Lindros in the sense of offensive production.
Oh, agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's sort by points, and again, it's making me refresh. All right. So Mitch Marner, we know was a big one. Rantanen, a guy, I think everybody wishes we took over Provorov, but again, top 10 pick. Sebastian Aho was a second round pick. Jack Eichel, second overall. Now he lost some time due to injuries. He probably would be around second on
Yeah,
this
that points
list.
per game is pretty
Yeah,
solid.
he would be probably a little higher than Aho. Though Aho is pretty comparable. I mean, the games are pretty comparable. Kyle Connor on this list, he dropped in that draft. Barzal dropped in that draft. And then look who it is. 24th overall, Travis Konechny, a guy that for some reason people were very down on this guy. If you look at that redraft, he is a top 10 pick in that draft. Brock Besser, also a guy who a lot of people were down on, but also top 10 pick. Timo Meyer was a high pick, good player, really good player like him. And then Kirill Kaprizov, who we all know, and if you look at his production, outside of McDavid, there's a good chance that point per game wise, he would lead this crop taken in the fifth round, which is crazy to think of. 330 points in 278 games. Rupe Hintz was a second round pick. He's been a damn good player at the NHL level as well. Obviously, a big part of that Dallas team. Zach Werenski, really good numbers, really good defenseman. Dylan Strome was a guy who was taken high, rebounded. His career rebounded hard. Pavel Zacha, a guy who's had a pretty good career. I like him. Also rebounded after a slow start. Noah Hannafin turned out to be a really good defenseman, but not like an elite, you know, number one guy on every team he goes
Probably
to.
like a number two, essentially.
Yeah. Joel Eriksson Ek, really good number 20 pick. Again, a two-way forward. Jake DeBrusk, 14. I think that's pretty appropriate. Shabbat ended up being like pretty similar to Provorov in a lot of sense. Provorov started off hot and now has kind of somewhat declined offensively. Um, we'll see how Provorov, but he looks to be at least offensively like he's a little bit of a letdown considering where he was taken. Vincent Dunn, second,
What a pick, yeah.
yeah, like 56. Again, a flawed player in a sense. Connor Garland was taken 123rd,
Troy Terry, pretty late
yeah.
as well.
Troy Terry,
Um,
another player who's really good, really, really good.
and this is one of the only ones so far that we've gone through where like out of the top 20 in points here, 10 out of the top 20 are actually top 10 picks. So this is a really strong draft, so that doesn't surprise me, but like it still even shows out of the top 20, like or out of the top 20 points, like it's still only 10, the top 10 are in there, but there's still a bunch of other guys that were selected
Yeah,
beyond, and a bunch of guys that were selected beyond that point are higher than guys that were selected in the
yeah.
top 10.
And
So
there and this draft is really good. Like
yeah, oh,
it's
definitely.
littered with good players like
We're going
Kraus,
down the list.
Rasmus
Yep.
Anderson, and
Mangiapane,
Mangiapane, Roslovic, Troy Terry, who
yep.
probably point per game wise is
Sorelli.
high. Yeah, like there's a lot of really good
Sorelli's really
players.
underrated. I think like he's like a type of player you need to like win a cup for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, I agree. And he was taken in the third round.
Yep.
Um, yeah, just a lot of talent found in this draft beyond the first round. Again, the elite guys were kind of taken up top, except for Konechny
And
and
Barzal. Yeah.
and Besser. I mean, they were 24th and 23rd,
Yeah.
and they're two of the best players in the draft. Um, 2014. Let me sort this out again. We'll go through this a little quicker. So
Yep.
Leon Draisaitl, third overall. What a goddamn pick.
Look at
Phenomenal
that
player.
Pasternak pick, man.
David Pasternak, 25th in the draft. On the same pace as Draisaitl. You can say they're
But
comparable.
Yariv, you can't get skilled guys
I know.
in the
I know you
20s,
you
man. You're
have
not
to you
allowed.
have to take him at number one overall. Yeah. And then Braden Point, third round pick. We all know Braden Point. Dylan Larkin was taken in the middle of the pack. Obviously William Nylander is a great player. Nikolai Ehlers, Fiala, Victor Arvidsson, fourth round pick, really good player. Jared McCann, Andrew Kempe, Alex Tuck was taken at 18. He's a good player. A lot of these guys, obviously
Yeah.
not. I mean,
And
just look at that.
out of the 20, there's only six guys that were drafted in the top 10. So 14 players were drafted outside the top 10 have more points than, a majority of guys drafted in the top 10 here. So,
Yeah, Brandon Montour, 55th overall second round pick.
yeah.
And Devin Taves, fourth round pick.
Oh. Well, I mean,
Interesting.
even Sanheim at 17, like with the way he's progressed, I mean,
Yeah.
should probably have been higher.
Yeah, no, I think it's appropriate. Middle of the first round,
Yeah.
been top pairing guy at this point in his career, the top three guy at the very least. Had a really good season this year. I keep hearing
Interested to see
people
how he
trying to put
follows
his season
up.
down. People keep saying he had a not as good of a second half. I don't agree with that. Considering he was injured
He was
and the
also
way
playing
he
hurt.
finished,
Yeah.
yeah, I think he was great this year. I think him and York were clear cut the best
Agreed.
defenders on this team,
Well, yeah.
and they were neck and neck all year.
I think it's a real building block of a year for him to take us even further steps. So I'm really
Yeah,
interested to see how he performs next season.
yeah. Let's go to 13.
Oh man, this is making me feel old
I
with all
know,
these
right?
drafts.
So Nathan McKinnon, first overall, that was the right pick at the time.
Still is.
Alexander Barkov, second right pick at the time. Great, great pick. You see a little more consistency here. Elias Lindholm, who just left as a free agent. Sean Monahan, who has revitalized his career, started off, had injury problems. Bo Horvat, really good player. Again, this is one of the only times we've ever seen a top 10 pick traded. And that was for Corey Schneider. Jake
Yep.
Gensel was 77th overall, and we know what kind of contract he got this year. Really, really good player. Max Domi, kind of an afterthought for people. Seth Jones, people talk down about him pretty much because he's overpaid, but Pavel Bushnevich, 75th overall. Um, and again, Jonathan Drouin, who I was high on, good player, not a great player. Um, you see most of the best players from this team. Rasmus Ristolainen, everybody's favorite. He was taken eighth overall in the draft. Darnell Nurse. It's funny that Ristolainen's outproducing Darnell Nurse.
That is interesting. I mean, even with this one in the top 20, there's eight guys selected in the top 10 essentially.
Yeah.
So
Anthony
it's like
Duclair is
same
late.
theme, right? Like obviously some top 10 guys like the whole top end there, the whole like what first like five picks, obviously all in the top 10, but after that there's a lot of variance. So
Yeah. I'm sure as they scroll down, you'll see
oh,
kind
Robert
of
Hag.
yeah, good old Robert Hagen the third.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah, just a lot of variety in the actual, and we know about St. Morin's story. Unfortunate story, 11th overall. Again, because you don't know what's going to happen to a lot of these guys. Like injuries take hold, their development stifles. We just talked about Wade Allison, who was a high second round pick and didn't work out. All right, and this is the dreaded Nail Yakupov draft. And if you look at this list, what I love about this list is how much crap the Flyers get for their draft history. But if you really look at it, Philip Forsberg, by far the best player in this draft.
Hurdle
Um,
as well, really great.
yep. And if you look at who's that number five there? Who's taking the third
Is
round?
Shane who? What?
Shane
Gostisbehere?
Gossesbear. Looks to be arguably, one of the best defensemen from this draft. Maybe not defensively, offensively, he's the second best. Defensively, obviously Truba, who's, and Hampus Lindholm, Damon Severson, number 60th overall. Teravainen, fourth on this list, he was 18th. Thomas Hurdle was 17th. Phil Forsberg was 11. Um, the first overall pick in this draft is like not
This
even
one,
part of
in
this
terms of the
conversation.
trend, Yariv, like this one is even worse, I would say. So like out of the top 20 in points here in 2012, only five players are top 10 picks.
Yeah.
So that just shows the variance. And even the top of the list here, right? Like you have Forsberg as the number one player, picked at 11th. Like that's only one behind where the Flyers picked essentially or could have picked essentially this season. Like it just shows you're in that range, there's still a possibility to get that type of talent. And Scott Lawton, obviously, that you're highlighting there, like he's 20th on the list, but it's hilarious that he was drafted 20th and is 20th on a list spot on, right?
Yeah, yeah, and again, some good defensemen in this draft, like that were not taken. Like Jacob Slavin,
Yeah,
120th,
later on with the
right?
defensemen,
Like
it's a
really,
theme.
everybody. I don't know why everybody calls Jacob Slavin like an elite number one defenseman. Um,
He's more shut down
because
though.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, like and defensively, yes, but a lot of times when you think about like elite, true number one defensemen, they are very two way.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
but Still a great defender. I would love to have him in our top pairing. Like,
He
love it.
needs that offensive partner for sure, but
Right.
like he's the shutdown guy for
And
sure.
that's probably why he dropped, right? Is that he probably had a limited offensive ceiling and was taken as a defensive defenseman and ended up developing an offensive game over time.
Yep.
And then becoming a top pairing guy for a very good team, or I guess the number one guy for a very good team. Athanasiou was a guy who I think he dropped heavily in this draft. Turned out to be
Yeah, it
pretty
was
good pick though.
attitude issues, and I mean
Yeah,
that's kind of transferred over to the NHL, right? There's
right.
been a lot of rumblings of the same thing. So
Yeah. It just
unfortunately, the Greek guy has to have attitude
yeah.
issues, but that's
it
okay.
it's interesting to see like how crazy this is. You know what I mean? And like Matt, everybody knows about Dumba now, who had a really good start at the start of his career, but is now completely fallen off.
A lot of injuries for him
Cool.
though,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
true. Alex Kerfoot, good player. Colton Parayko. I'd love to have him
Yeah.
on this team.
I mean, I
86th
think the
overall.
steal, honestly, like Forsberg's the steal at 11, but I really think the steal of the draft is probably Slavin, just with the minutes he plays and
Definitely.
he plays at that draft pick. It's crazy.
Slavin or Teravainen.
Yeah.
Maybe Hurdle even
Maybe
as well.
Ghost, I guess, if you look at
Yeah, Ghost
78
is
there.
absolutely a steal from this draft. It ended up being the best offensive defenseman outside of Morgan
I would
Riley.
say Galchenyuk, even though he's
Played,
up there just because he's played so many games, like he's probably a disappointment in terms of like how he started his career off and what it kind of turned into.
yeah, who's playing in Russia now?
Yeah.
Top player in Russia. Yeah, that's a weird one, man. Like Alchenyuk, you
Because he
know.
started off with Montreal with like a 30 goal seasons and things like that, and it just really
Also,
derailed from that
also an
point.
attitude problem with him,
Yeah,
which
it's
and we know
unfortunate.
about that alcohol video of him being drunk and threatening a cop and all that.
Yeah, that was insane.
Yeah. All right, Ryan Nugent Hopkins draft. This draft is interesting just because it seems to have Sean Couturier like around where he was.
Yeah.
Again, injuries played a huge part in Couturier's path here. He probably would be higher on this list in overall points, but he also started earlier than a lot of these guys. But you look at this, and Nikita Kucherov is by far the best player on this list. He was taken in the second round.
The funniest part about this is the top two players on this list are above pick 50. So,
Yeah, yeah,
like, it just shows, right? Like, Nugent Hopkins was a great number one, but I mean, if you look back at it, there's a lot of guys that probably should have went ahead of him.
yeah.
So,
I mean, Landeskog probably would go ahead of him. Goudreau, Kucherov, Huberdeau, we don't know because he started off so goddamn good in Florida and then had a mediocre season all of a sudden in Calgary. Shifley, I
yeah.
think, is an awesome player. I love him. I see
Very consistent. Like, he
no
pretty
issue
much
with
is,
that pick.
he's pretty much getting you 30 goals, like
Yep.
30 assists guaranteed at least every season or more.
Yeah.
So,
Vincent Torchek, what a great pick. Third round pick. Really, really good player. Two-way player. Again, I think Sean Couturier would have more points. He struggled early in his career, then took off, then had injury issues. Palat, 208th, seventh round pick
yeah.
for
Once
Palat.
again, too, like out of the top 20 in points here, only eight of them are selected in the top 10 of the draft. So
Yep.
we're finding this theme is constant, right? Like
Yeah.
about it's around half that number. Like those guys selecting the top 10 will be productive NHL players, and then essentially
Yeah.
the rest of it, it's like a crapshoot.
Right. Like Adam Larson dropped. I mean, he's a good defenseman. We all like him a lot. He never lived up to his name, but I think he's a defenseman every team would be happy to have.
Yeah, there was
Um,
definitely more offensive upside I think that they thought was there, but he's really just proven to be a defensive
yeah.
first guy.
Dougie Hamilton, another really good defenseman. I think that production is great.
Agreed.
461 points in 771 games. Again, also labeled as a true number one guy.
Nick Cousins, a
I
late
don't know.
pick from the Flyers.
Yeah, yeah. Also was a really good pick. Had a lot of young success. And just found his way into being like a role player. Joel Armia is a good player. William Carlson's on this list. Blake Coleman, William Carlson obviously was a second round pick. Ended up
Yeah.
taking off after going to Vegas. Not a guy that you expected. Josh Manson's on here. Some good players. Not very predictable when you look back. And then the Taylor Hall draft, and we'll end it here. Let me refresh because it's probably not going to work until I do. All right. So Tyler Sagan leads that group over Taylor Hall, who did have a great career. He lost an entire year this year, which sucks for him, but he probably would be pretty close to Sagan, at least point production. Jeff Skinner was just bought out, which is ridiculous. What a terrible buyout, in my opinion. Also, really good career for an undersized guy. Tarasenko, we know about him. This maybe was more in that Russia, scared to take Russians era when you look at Kuznetsov and Tarasenko.
Well, I would
Yeah.
say Stone is the steal of this draft, sixth round.
Yeah. Sixth round and get Mark Stone in the sixth round, 178th.
Yeah, crazy.
What a pick, dude. Tyler Toffoli in the second round.
Gallagher as well. I mean, like he's obviously slowing down just the style he played, but 147th overall, like he
Yeah.
put up some big seasons for Montreal, 30
And
goals.
who it could be too? Zach Hyman, 123.
Oh, that's 100% because like 50 just had a 50 goal season.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
nuts. But even out of this one, like it's the same theme. Like, let me see. Six guys drafted out of the top 20 in points of this draft, like six guys are only top 10 picks. So it's once again the same theme kind of coming to the surface here where some of those, top 10 guys, like sure they produced considerably and essentially met their expectations, but about half of that top 10 did not.
And
So
look at the fifth on the list, Ryan Johansson. Look where his career is right now. And don't
yeah.
get me wrong, I'm not poo-pooing everything he did in his career, but at this point, like he's an afterthought. We're not
Yeah,
even
but
talking about playing him.
exactly. And also to your point, like he never really had that significant impact that really any like they thought that they were getting Columbus when they drafted him. They thought he would be a franchise number one center. Did not end up being that for them. Goes to Nashville and he wasn't a franchise number one center really for them either. Like he was good, but he never pushed them over that hump or anything
Yeah.
like that. So
Nino Ryder was fifth overall. Good player. I think everybody really likes him. Good
very
career.
consistent though, I would
Yeah,
say. Yeah,
yeah, that's the thing. Really good player, middle six forward, taken fifth
exactly.
overall.
Yeah.
You know,
Where you have like a guy like
um,
Brock Nelson at 30th
right,
who's outscored him considerably at this point.
right. Radko Gudas, damn good
What a
pick.
pick. What a pick, man, for Tampa.
Yeah, even Michael Furland.
Thinking back to that trade, man,
Look at Eric
turn
Bjornsson.
Coburn into Konechny and Gudis. What a trade. Like Hextall gets shit on, but that was a good trade.
That's the thing. People like to rewrite history and pretend like these guys are all bad.
Yeah.
They like to remove the wins that even Chuck Fletcher, like that you like to remove the
Well, that
wins that
Giroux
they did
trade
have.
will go down as a win. So
Yeah, it is. And so far, it looks like we're going to turn it into a double win with pushing it to next year's draft, which is a deeper draft and give us an opportunity to get a better player, move up in the draft, and
yeah,
potentially, hopefully, I mean, I would package all three first round picks. Though, if you look at the way the draft actually works out, probably dumb. But why those first round picks are worth so much is that a team's like, well, I could end up getting three or two NHL players rather than one.
exactly.
Um, again, depends on the draft you're in. Not all draft is full of
But
top players, and this is
yeah.
why teams are high on guys that you might not be.
And the chances are, if you did select all those three first rounders, let's the Flyers keep them all, like you're giving yourself a better odds, right? It's like
Right.
buying,
Yes.
having an extra lottery ticket. So even if two miss, hypothetically, like you're gonna hit one most likely.
And the
So
Flyers have six picks in the
yeah,
top 64.
yeah, it's crazy. They really loaded up there.
So if you look at the list that we pointed out to you and you had a chance to grab six players in the top 64, and you look at the likelihood of potentially grabbing one of the best players in the draft, it increases with the
Very
amount of
much
picks you have.
so.
Yes. So you could end up walking away
Especially
with
if
three
you
really good players.
Well, especially if you look at these lists, like there's tons of guys on these lists as we went from all the drafts through. Well, obviously not like for 2024, 2023, 2022, kind of the beginning of it, but once we hit like 2021, 2022 and after that, like essentially half of these guys are beyond, the top 10 picks. So it really just shows that, there's a real opportunity to select talented players with that many picks in the first two rounds.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that exercise because I think people need to see it. Because
That was a
I
lot of
actually
fun.
I actually do that myself. That's why I have like this is not the first time I've done that.
Yeah.
So, and I do it like periodically to look back at drafts. And that's why I don't care about rankings. It's why I respond the way I do. It's why I don't freak out when I see Luchenko. I go, okay, did they believe that that's the guy? Hopefully they're right. What
Well,
if
it's
he
not
ends up being
always
the fifth
accurate.
best player in the draft?
These projections are not always accurate, and this essentially this exercise that we did really just shows that. Like, there's always going to be a handful of guys in that top 10 that are going to be impact players. That's what we just did shows. But there's also going to be another handful, typically 5 to 6, of those top 10 guys that they might not hit how you expect, and guys that are a little later, in that teen range, in that 20 range, even potentially, steals in later rounds could really be that impact guy. So it just shows, right, that it's not always the end all be all to have that top 5, top 10 pick. Obviously, it's nice and it probably increases your likelihood of, getting an impact guy, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're guaranteed to get that player.
Yes, and you saw it every season is that even the ones with the best drafts, like that Connor
Exactly.
McDavid draft was phenomenal, and yet you know what I mean. Like when they talk about that 2003 draft,
Yeah,
that
dude.
like all of those guys are good. That's what it was. That everyone in the first round was good
Well, literally
and second round.
out of the 14 drafts we went through there's only one draft where the top 10 um essentially was in the top 20 of points, all the full top 10.
Yeah,
One out of 14 drafts. Like, that's
it's crazy.
pretty
Yeah,
crazy to think about.
and
Like,
and that's why draft rankings don't matter. They're fun. I like them. I get into them too. I don't scoff at people for
but it's
reading
it's
them.
not the end all be all, right?
Right. Don't take draft rankings too seriously. Let things play out, and hopefully your team made the right choice. Hopefully they pick the guy in the third round that ends up being like, you know, close to 1,000 point player in his career. Because if you find a Mark Stone in the third, fourth round, that's a win of a draft, even if you missed on your first round. Because most of the time you're really only hitting on two players of your entire draft. If you hit on three or four, that's amazing. That's an amazing draft because most players do not touch the NHL ice or only touch it for, a combined 100 games. And that's how drafts really are. They're not littered with guys who are going to be impact players on your team. And that's why I don't even look at Hunter McDonald, who I'm excited about, and go, oh, this is going to be a top four defenseman on our team. I look at a guy like Bonk, I look at the progress from year to year. And that's where I get excited. That's why I get so excited about Jet Luchenko being so young, because I'm like, that those numbers could be highly deceiving in his initial draft year productivity, right? Like if he develops a certain way, the way they hope he does with his mentality, his attitude, his leadership, his commitment to the gym, he could end up being much higher on that list by the end than people anticipate. And you can see happens every season to certain guys. And hopefully Jet Luchenko is that guy. And hopefully when we look back at the 2023 draft, Matvey Michkov will be either right below or above Connor Bedard. Let's hope.
Yeah, wishful thinking. Let's hope, Yariv.
He's got the skill. He's got the
Definitely.
skill. The rest is will be up to him and the team around him. All right. So the other point that we wanted to make, and we kind of mentioned this earlier, is the Flyers. They just did a ranking of the youngest teams in the NHL. Do you have the list in front of you by any chance, Vasily?
Yeah, I can pull it up right now.
Yeah. Why don't you announce this one?
Yeah, sure. Just give me one sec here.
I thought I had it on my phone. I might
Oh, I
have it.
got it. So yeah, here's the
Cool.
list. Essentially, the Flyers are the second team on this list in terms of youngest NHL teams based on the average age of 20-man game rosters. So Buffalo is the youngest team in the league, 25.3 average age. The Flyers have an average age of 26.1 upcoming here, and are the second youngest team in the league. You have Montreal as the third youngest, Utah as the fourth youngest, Ottawa as the fifth youngest, Boston as the sixth youngest, Anaheim as the seventh youngest, Columbus as the eighth youngest, the Rangers as the ninth, Dallas as the 10th youngest, Calgary as the 11th youngest team, New Jersey as the the 12th youngest team. Vegas as the 13th youngest team. San Jose as the 14th youngest team, which is kind of weird considering where they are right now. And Los Angeles as the 15th youngest, and Colorado as the 16th youngest. So, um, I think it's just a great point to bring up because everybody's saying, well, the Flyers need to trade away some of their veteran players, but they're already the second youngest team in the league. So there's like a certain extent to that where like if you remove all these veteran guys, you're really leaving a lot of these young guys out to dry in a sink or swim type of situation where there really isn't any sort of structure or really anybody for them to lean on when things kind of go awry. And you don't really want your younger guys to develop in that type of environment. You want to have veterans around to potentially ask questions to help, them assimilate to the NHL level. Like for the Flyers, like what would the benefit be of bringing over a guy like Michkov and having like an average age roster of like 23 years old and nobody's there to really help him through these tough barriers or roadblocks that he might have early in his career when you have a veteran guy like a Lawton, like a Couturier, like a Johnson. There's guys around that can help, your young players kind of ask questions, kind of get through those tough times, those tough periods. And in the past, we've kind of seen, right? Like when teams really gut it and go super young, a lot of the times it doesn't end up working out, and you can end up really ruining a lot of your younger players because you don't have that infrastructure of veterans around them. So I think the Flyers are doing it in a smart way where they have a very young roster. And if you don't believe that, this metric essentially proves they have the second youngest roster in the league. Um, and with that, they're surrounding a lot of these young guys with, older players that have, been in the league quite some time and can kind of help them and help get these younger guys established in the league and kind of help them navigate their way into becoming, an NHL pro on a full-time basis.
Yeah, no, I think you absolutely nailed that description. And who are the oldest teams in the league? Do you have that
No,
on
I
there?
don't
Or
have
does it
that
stop at
metric.
15?
It's just the youngest teams, yeah.
I thought the list had the oldest teams in the league, and I believe Edmonton is one of the oldest teams in the league. Again, not
Florida
a
as well, I think. So
yeah. Did you notice a pattern there?
yeah, they're contending for cups. So
Yeah. So young players don't win cups, and
they can
if
help you get there down the line, but you need to
yes,
surround them with veterans, help their development, and
and
it's
because
all
this
in
is
good time.
not a young man's game, and the average age of those teams are close to 29 years old.
Right
And
around the
I
prime of most of their players, which makes a lot
right,
of sense.
correct, which is what I've been saying for a long time, is that this is not a young man's game. That is an illusion. People keep repeating it because everybody likes to repeat them each other. But it's just not a true narrative. There are
Yeah.
more young players in the league than ever, but that does not make them cup winners,
No. Well,
or the
look at
best players in the
McDavid.
league.
Look at McDavid. Did he come in the league and make Edmonton a cup
Weren't
contender?
they bad for the first 3 years? They were like horrible.
Yeah, they were pretty bad. I'm pretty sure they didn't make the playoffs for the first two, maybe three seasons, but like he just got to his first cup at 27 in essentially his, he's
And
hitting his
and
prime right
it,
now.
right,
So
correct. Yep. And I just love that list because, for all the people bashing the Flyers for not being in a rebuild, they clearly are with the other teams on that list, which is Buffalo, Montreal, Utah, Ottawa, and then Boston, surprisingly, on that list.
I
Anaheim
don't
right
know how
after
San
them.
Jose like has such an older team. It's kind of surprising to me. But
Yeah. Well, they didn't move. Well, they have like their best players, I guess, being younger, and then they have
yeah,
like a slew of older guys. They did just get rid of Kevin Hayes. Um, It's just, I think Boston's the one that surprises me the most on that list with how young the
yeah.
rest of their core is beyond their top named guys that we think of with like Pasternak and Marchand. Um, yeah, but now they have Lindholm and oh my God, the Russian, what's his name? Zadorov.
Zadorov. Yeah.
Zadorov. So,
Big Z, the
um,
other big Z.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I just love that we got 12 players under 25 years old. I don't know. It looks like they're rebuilding to me. And it looks like they're
Yeah.
staying young for a reason.
I mean, when you have 12 players under the age of 25, like how can you look at and point at that and say that it isn't a rebuild at
Yeah.
this point? Like it just doesn't make any sense. Like when you look at the metrics of it, when you
Yeah.
like just assess the overall team structure, like it literally makes zero sense. But
Yeah.
that's my opinion on it.
Yeah. And then we'll do one more topic here, and then we've gone long, so we're gonna cut off the last two topics and move them to next week when we talk to Jim Jackson. So the last one they released a list of the most fights, and I did have that one too, and I just realized like now I'm like I should have pulled this up ahead of time, but I don't know where that is either. But the
No,
Flyers
I
did.
have it. I
You
have
have
it.
it?
So yeah. So the Flyers have the highest fight percentage essentially in the NHL, like based on last season. So out of 22 fights, the Flyers won 23, so 96% of the fights. And that's like probably like a real credit obviously to Nick Delorier, who's in the bulk of those fights. Obviously Nick Seeler as well had a good
Yep.
amount, probably Garnet Hathaway. I think Lawton mixed it up every once in a while, but I don't think Lawton really fights as much as he did when he was younger at this
Yeah.
point. And then after that, you have some pretty interesting percentages as well. So Dallas had 7 fights and eight total fights and 7 wins. The Caps, 12 total fights and 10 wins. I mean, Tom Wilson is probably the main factor there.
Yeah.
The Ducks, 28 fights and 19 wins. Radko Gudas comes to mind on their team. Um, and then Colorado last 9 total fights and 6 won, and that's 67%. So I think they have a Curtis McDermott on their team or somebody McDermott. I don't remember the first name. I might be butchering it, but he's a tough guy and usually wins a lot of his fights. So yeah, the Flyers 96% fight winning percentage. And then below them, Dallas with 88%, Caps 83%, Ducks 68%. Avalanche 67%. So
Yeah.
Flyers kind of living up to that Broad Street bully reputation still to this
Yeah.
day.
I think that is the Tortorella factor. I think it's a reflection of why the room is so put together and why Delorier has been a valued member of this team.
He has a role.
Yeah, I talk about waiving him, but it's really only because of the cap implications that the Flyers are under,
Yeah.
and trying to find ways to get them under
Well,
LTIR. But he has absolute value and maybe even a perfect 13th forward for this team.
I agree. He definitely has value. And I think when you're bringing a young, talented guy in like Michkov, like you
Yeah.
want to have a guy like Delorier potentially around
For
in
all
case
of them,
anybody.
second
Yeah,
youngest team in the league.
exactly. Just to protect your younger guys in case, people try to take runs. And for anybody that believes that it doesn't matter and it's really not a factor, if you go ask any one of those players personally, if they,
They will tell you it does.
yeah, exactly, if they would enjoy or rather have Nick Deslauriers on their team than not, they would 100% say that Deslauriers makes a huge difference for them on the ice and just having that confidence, having that swagger to be themselves and not really be afraid that somebody might take a cheap shot or something like that because
Yeah.
they know if somebody does, they're gonna have to deal and answer to Deslauriers.
Yeah. And I think Delorier does that as well as anybody in the league. If you could argue he's the best at it in the league right now with those numbers. And he's such a likable guy.
Yeah,
It's hard
very nice
not,
guy.
yeah, you kind of get why the Flyers locked him up for 4 years because you're like, we just will have that covered. Now they did
Yeah.
overpay for him, is slightly overpaid for what his role is, especially now. But he's not a detriment defensively. He's solid defensively. It's just offensively, he's very limited. Really got his only goal because he was playing with
Yeah.
Sean
I
Couturier.
mean, he used
It-
to be a defenseman, so it just
right,
makes
yeah.
sense, right?
But he is a guy who has value, and I would, somebody online. I'm sorry, I forget who you are. They asked me if, I forget who asked the question. Asked me if he would get taken if he was waived, and I think there is a chance he would.
He
To be
probably
honest
would
with
by
you,
some team, yeah.
so that could make the Flyers reticent to drop him because I don't think they're trying to get rid of Delorier, to be honest with you. Because I think they understand that as well. I think Danny understands that being an undersized player in the league. And this game is very much an intimidation game, still. Like people can poo-poo that all you want, but when you have a really young team and they're learning their ways and they're building their reputation and getting stronger and bigger, having a guy like that behind you, I think, does make a difference. Doesn't make a difference in every game. Doesn't make a difference in every situation. There's certain games where you kind of wish you had somebody else except for instead of Delorier. But in a lot of those, highly physical games, Delorier can be an X factor physically, and that's why Tortorella loves him too. So I wouldn't expect for him to get waived unless the Flyers have to.
But there's no choice, right? So,
Yeah, but there is a chance he would get taken too, because there are like I imagine a team like San Jose would be interested, or the Ducks, who he played for back in the
or
day.
Chicago
Yeah,
potentially.
or Chicago, where they have a ton of cap space, and it wouldn't hurt them to take on Delorier. And they'd be like, well, now we're the toughest team in the league, or whatever. Um, yeah, it's a Delorier appreciation. All right, anything else you want to add, dude?
No, just really fun show. I think that draft breakdown we did was awesome. Can't wait for people to listen to it already.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see how I loop that into the title at the end. See how many people get annoyed by what we're trying to say, because I feel like there's always people who freak out when we try to
That's okay.
bring that attitude.
It's all a conversation starter, right? That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah,
So,
but I wanted people to see that we're the reason that I have the attitude I have, and that you have the attitude you have, and why we don't freak out over draft picks and all this stuff is because we look at this stuff in the way that it's actually
oh yeah,
manifest.
we talk about like stuff like this with the draft like for years at this point.
Right.
So it was fun to actually bring it to life on the show.
Right, and show it visually to people what we're looking at and why we say what we say. And maybe we should have done this earlier, to be honest. Okay. All right. Thank you everybody for listening. Again, want to do a shout out to our sponsors, Jim Steaks. Make sure to go get yourself a cheesesteak from Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Public Summit Adjusters 215-752-0560. Again, they are your arm against insurance companies to check up on your claims. That's 215-752-0560. And again, shout out to Sports Spider. They are the aggregator of sports. They do all the sports, but go there for the NHL. Definitely go there for NHL news, because they'll just bring everything together
Definitely
for
go
you.
there for the Flyers too.
Yeah,
So
go to Flyers Nitty Gritty and go to Sports Spider for Flyers news. They will have our articles, and it directs directly to our articles. So if you click on our article on their page, it's all good. That's what the partnership is for. And also want to remind everybody, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for notifications. Follow us on iTunes and Spotify for the audio versions. Give us a rating there as well. Thank you all so much. Vasili, great episode. Great job as always, dude.
yeah,
Um,
brothers, likewise.
yeah. And again, thank you everybody for listening. We love you. And remember, always stay